Chapter 2503. Suddenly, a deafening roar resounded between heaven and earth. Everyone subconsciously looked back and saw that the towering mountain in the shape of a halberd seemed to have been slashed by a supreme sword. It shattered, and countless golden liquid gushed out from within. The golden water entered the pitch-black water and poured onto the palace together with the pitch-black water. The vague shape suddenly became real, as if it had walked out of an ancient painting. It released an incomparably ancient pressure that swept across the heavens and earth, causing everyone's soul to tremble violently. If it were an ordinary celestial venerate, they would have knelt down and kowtowed. However, most of the people present were famous geniuses on the myriad world list. Even if they were not to be underestimated. Hence, they quickly resisted the pressure. At this time, the only cultivator in the group who had not rushed out said, "Brother Zhenli, don't chase after them. Now that the inheritance has been opened, it is more important to obtain the inheritance." This person was a young man with a golden crown on his head. His qi and blood surged, and he had an innate air of nobility about him. But, young Master Zhenli frowned. He really hated Qin Nan and Emotianga. After all, they were at his banquet, yet something like that had happened. He felt even more embarrassed than the other geniuses. "Brother Zhenli, don't say but. Why waste time on two ants? Don't worry. After we obtain the inheritance, as long as these two people are still in the Great Evolution World Mountain, I will definitely cripple them for you," the young man urged. From his words, it was clear that he did not care about Qin Nan and the other two people. "All right." Young Master Zhenli immediately nodded in agreement. He no longer chased after Qin Nan and the other two people. Instead, he flew toward the palace. "Haha, Lin Xiaoji. This is the inheritance left behind by the Nine Heavens' immortal emperor. I'm sure you don't want to miss it, right? I'll be waiting for you inside." Yan Danqing let out a cold laugh before he left. Soon, the young man with the golden crown emitted a mysterious light that enveloped the geniuses. He flew majestically into the palace. The tightly shut red door opened on its own. A long bridge of celestial qi hung down from the inside, as if it was welcoming him. Everyone. When Qin Nan and the other two saw this, they understood that this person was a descendant of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect. To be able to make the immortal palace welcome him, this person's ancestor is at least an elder of the Great Development Immortal Palace. The delicate and pretty youngster said, "What should we do now?" The spirit of the celestial pole list looked at the handsome youth and sneered, "That group of people are your enemies. If we go in, we will definitely be surrounded." More than 30 geniuses and a descendant of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect. This was an extraordinarily powerful lineup. Ahem, it's not like we don't have a chance. Let's just wait here for a while. The handsome young man rubbed his nose. "Wait," the spirit of the celestial pole list said in annoyance. "As everyone knows, the first opportunity is the most important when competing for an inheritance. If he lost the initiative, then he would be restrained at every step. Not to mention, they had the descendants of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect, so they would definitely be able to find them extremely quickly. The great opportunity left behind by the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor." The handsome young man shook his head and said, "You can't say that. This descendant of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect didn't hesitate to find young Master Zhenli and so many other geniuses. There must be an extremely terrifying restriction inside that requires everyone's strength to break open. Moreover, the inheritance left behind by a dignified immortal emperor is definitely not something that can be found as soon as one enters. One must pass through many obstacles." At this point, he smiled mysteriously and said, "In short, you just have to trust me. When the time comes, I will have a way." Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list looked at each other and instantly understood each other's thought. If this guy tricked them when the time came, then they would destroy those immortal swords inch by inch in front of him. The two of them quickly calmed down. In this situation, they could only rely on this handsome young man to display the heaven-defying methods of the future master of the Blue Dome. After waiting for about 1,000 breaths of time, the handsome young man whispered a few words and said, "We can go in now." The three of them immediately turned into 3 rays of light and flew toward the palace. The moment they stepped through the door, an ancient and desolate aura suddenly rushed toward them. A barren land appeared in front of them. There were all kinds of formation patterns hanging down from the sky, like dragons and serpents quietly hibernating. Qin Nan couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Obviously, these formation patterns were filled with astonishing killing intent. As long as they were slightly touched, they would suffer a thunderous attack. "They are up there," the spirit of the celestial pole list suddenly said. Qin Nan and the handsome young man looked up and saw that at the end of the distant sky, there was a piece of land with a radius of about 1,000 miles. The soil was a crystalline color, which allowed Qin Nan and the others to easily see that there was an ancient tree growing on it. A vine, an ancient flower, and a divine light flashed. They were all protected by powerful restrictions. The descendants of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect, young Master Zhenli, and many other geniuses were using all kinds of powerful methods to peel off the restrictions layer by layer. The heaven-seizing vine, the jade dragon tree, and the 3 wonders divine flower. My goodness, the 9 heavens immortal emperor is really generous. He actually left behind such divine items here. The handsome young man swallowed his saliva. Young Master Zhenli and the others also sensed something. They turned around and their eyes flashed with a cold light. They actually dared to come in. Yan Danqing sneered. This was indeed like the old saying, "Men die for wealth, and birds die for food." They clearly knew that this place was extremely dangerous, but they still dared to come in. They are courting death. In that case, after we take these 3 divine items, I will lead everyone to destroy them, the descendant of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect said coldly. At this time, the handsome young man's face revealed a pained expression. He then carefully took out a palm-sized nail from his storage pouch. It was rusty and looked ordinary, but it emitted a destructive aura. It was the aura of an item. Young Master Zhenli and the others sensed that something was amiss. When they turned around, their pupils shrank as they cried out, "The Delusion Breaker Immortal Nail?" The Delusion Breaker Immortal Nail was an extremely rare divine item in the universe. It was not something that could be made by humans. Instead, it was nurtured by heaven and earth. It was extremely rare. Even among the various great forces, there were not many of them. This nail could not be used to fight. It only had one effect, which was to temporarily break through an illusion, a small world, or a small space to enter the next place. Everyone knew that the more powerful an inheritance was, the more there would be more than one hurdle. Some people would even set up multiple small worlds or spaces, stacked on top of each other. Chapter 2504. Fellow Taoist Dong Yang, stop them immediately. Young Master Zhenli quickly reacted and shouted. The descendant of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect, Dong Yang, was also shocked. He quickly reached out his hand and slammed it down. The silent runes suddenly seemed to come alive. They emitted rays of brilliant light and a destructive aura. "Haha, how can this stop us?" The young man burst out laughing as he activated the delusion-breaking immortal nail. The space in front of them shattered like a mirror as a gentle force encapsulated the 3 of them and dragged them into it. They disappeared. Damn it! Young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others' faces darkened when they saw this. If they had known this would happen, they would have killed the 3 of them even if it would take them a little longer. "It seems that I have underestimated them," Dong Yang said slowly. He had stopped young Master Zhenli and the others because he wanted to get the item as soon as possible. Secondly, he did not care about Qin Nan and the others. Therefore, he did not pay much attention to them. "What should we do now?" They went in ahead of time. "Doesn't that mean?" Young Master Zhenli said with a gloomy face. He had given up another great inheritance in order to come to the inheritance left behind by the nine-firmament immortal emperor. Fellow Taoist Zhenli, don't worry. It's not that serious. Dong Yang snorted and said, "This is the inheritance left behind by the nine-firmament immortal emperor. How can it be simple? They don't know the specific situation inside and don't know the specific location. They might be trapped in a deadly trap. Even if they reach the location of the inheritance, they won't be able to take it." Young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others thought of something. Their expressions eased a little. However, such an unforeseen event still caused their hearts to tighten. They unleashed even more powerful techniques in order to increase their speed. After all, there was always a possibility. They did not want to end up empty-handed. At the same time, Qin Nan and the others felt as if they had traveled through time and space. After a few dozen breaths, their bodies suddenly became light and they arrived at another place. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list looked surprised. They didn't know what the delusion breaker immortal nail was, but they knew what was going on. As expected, the future owner of the Blue Dome was not simple. The two of them quickly calmed down and looked forward. Right now, they were in a valley, surrounded by steep cliffs and precipitous cliffs. The sky was blocked by countless black lights, so they shouldn't be able to forcefully fly out. Was that the Phoenix Blood Tree? And the Obedient Rock? Gasp! Isn't that the flower of the 9 holy flowers? The spirit of the celestial pole list drew a sharp intake of breath. Qin Nan also saw that around the valley, there were strange ancient trees, flowers, stones, and other strange things. Each of them was covered with divine light and contained ancient mysteries. Clearly, they were all extraordinary heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Ha ha ha, our luck is really good. We actually came to a blessed land. The handsome young man laughed proudly. That's right, we have to discuss how to split these things. The handsome young man suddenly thought of something and said seriously, "You contributed too much this time, so naturally, you should take the lion's share." The spirit of the celestial pole list said. Although they felt that this guy was a scammer, they had to admit that without this guy, they wouldn't have been able to come this far. Then I won't stand on ceremony. However, I don't need these things. Give me the immortal swords, and you two can split all the treasures here equally. The handsome young man swallowed and stared at Qin Nan. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list were stunned. Although a 7th-grade immortal weapon was relatively precious, there were already 20 to 30 heavenly materials and earthly treasures here, which completely surpassed a 7th-grade immortal weapon. This guy really loves swords as much as his life. Most importantly, he has so many swords, but he doesn't even need to use them. The two of them shook their heads and agreed. They prepared to harvest the heavenly materials and earthly treasures here. The two of them did not dare to be careless. They both summoned giant hands with the force of the rules and landed on one of the heavenly materials. However, at that instant, the two heavenly materials and earthly treasures suddenly emitted a brilliant glow, which penetrated the giant hands. The eyes of the three flickered. It was not the end of it. The 20 to 30 heavenly materials and earthly treasures in the valley seemed to have awakened from ancient times. They all emitted brilliant glows and gathered together, forming a long river of light rolling toward Qin Nan and the handsome young man. It was rushing toward them. What's that? Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list were startled. They saw rare phenomena such as lightning strikes, ancient pagodas, and the roars of deities and demons from the river of light. Each of them contained a shocking destructive aura. 100 tribulation, immortal light? The handsome young man said in astonishment, I didn't expect such a thing to exist in this world. The light contains hundreds of tribulations of the heavens and earth. The 100 tribulation, immortal light moved at a strange speed. It loomed above Qin Nan and the handsome young man in the blink of an eye. They were forced to execute their martial arts and execute their move. Bang bang bang. A series of explosions took place. The 100 tribulation immortal light began to show how terrifying it was. The rare phenomena that Qin Nan and the handsome young man saw from the light were summoned and struck at them continuously, as if Qin Nan and the handsome young man had triggered the wrath of the heavens. Primary force! Qin Nan yelled. He executed the atavistic heavenly art to its limit, executing all kinds of killing moves to destroy the rare phenomena. However, they recovered in less than a breath's time after being destroyed. Crap! Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list were startled. The 100 tribulation immortal light was extraordinarily powerful. The two of them had no chance against it. Why aren't you making your move? The spirit of the celestial pole leaderboard shouted angrily as it looked at the handsome young man who was standing at the side with a face full of amazement and had nothing to do. Ah? What did you say? I can't hear you, the thunder is too loud. The handsome young man let out a sigh when he saw the two glaring at each other. He rubbed his head and said, "How troublesome, you two are too weak. You can't even deal with the 100 tribulation immortal light. In the end, I still have to make my move." He let out another sigh and flicked his finger at the 2 rays of 100 tribulation immortal light. Chapter 2505. How powerful! Qin Nan was startled. The 2 fingers were equivalent to a full-powered attack from him. The eyes of the spirit of the celestial pole list flickered with astonishment too. Bang! The 200 tribulation immortal rays were shattered into pieces, but they quickly regrouped. Initially, they were only targeting Qin Nan and the young man, but they immediately fired more rays of light at the young man when they noticed the presence of another person. These 200 tribulation immortal rays have almost evolved into the 1,000 tribulation immortal rays. The young man nodded and murmured, however, they are still too weak. Following it, a terrifying aura burst out of his body. The young man seemed to have transformed into a peerless demon immortal. His figure was encapsulated by a black aura. His bloodshot eyes shook the heavens slightly. A demon cultivator? The thought crossed the minds of Qin Nan and the young man. Bang! The handsome young man took a step forward, and the entire valley shook slightly. Then, he stretched out his hands and stirred up all kinds of qi in all directions. 3 invisible forces descended, and directly captured the 3 beams of 100 tribulation transcendent light. The 100 tribulation immortal rays struggled vigorously. Suppress! The young man uttered a thunderous roar. Countless runes surfaced on the 3 wisps of magnificent force. They intertwined with one another and suppressed the 300 tribulation immortal rays like 3 ancient mountains, immobilizing them. The young man's aura underwent a tremendous change once again. His figure emitted hundreds of golden rays. His aura became sacred like an immortal from the 9 heavens. Destroy! The words he uttered seemed to represent the will of the heavens. Countless towering sword intents wrapped around the 3 rays of 100 tribulation immortal lights and crushed them into pieces. 3 breaths later, the immortal rays disappeared. The natural resources exploded too, returning the valley to its calm state. The young man returned to his normal state too. Is this all you've got? The spirit of the celestial pole list's eyes flickered with astonishment. He had destroyed the 300 tribulation immortal rays with just 3 moves. How powerful was that? Furthermore, from the state that the delicate young man was in, it didn't seem like he was using his full strength at all. This is a celestial venerable of the Tao realm? The spirit of the celestial pole list calmed down, its eyes burning with passion. Qin Nan's heart also stirred. An Empyrean of the Tao realm could actually reach this level? TSK, who are you looking down on? Can a mere extreme Tao realm Empyrean compare to me? The delicate youth said proudly. The spirit of the celestial pole list's mouth twitched. They were now in the space-time light left behind by this fella. This fella had become a supreme heavenly venerate in the great Yen World Mountain. If he wasn't a celestial venerable of the Tao realm, then what was he? The Tao realm was already the limit of an empyrean. I really don't understand you. Since you have such a powerful cultivation base, why didn't you help when we were in danger earlier? Do you feel good when you see the two of us working so hard? The spirit of the celestial pole list thought of something and said unhappily. The delicate youth glanced sideways. Have you ever seen a force fight where the most powerful person would take the lead? Isn't it always the weak who goes first and the strong who goes last? It made sense, and there was no way to refute it. What do we do now? This broken place is not a blessed land at all, but a dangerous place, the spirit of the celestial pole list said with a frown, looking up at the black light above. It seemed that they could only choose to force their way out. No, this is not necessarily a dangerous place. The delicate youth's eyes lit up and he turned around. Look here. Qin Nan and the other two looked over and saw that on the originally smooth cliff, ancient runes had appeared, forming a pattern of yin and yang. What is this? This is one of the ancient sealing formations. According to my guess, this formation will only appear after the 100 calamity immortal light is shattered, allowing people to obtain the opportunity. TSK, I didn't expect the 9 heavens immortal emperor to like this kind of trick. After the delicate youth sighed with emotion, a little starlight appeared in his eyes, releasing an invisible eye power to look at the formation. Break. After a while, the delicate youth pointed a finger at a corner of the formation. Boom. The formation was broken in an instant, and cracks like a spider web appeared on the smooth cliff. Then, with a loud noise, a stone cave with a height of 30 feet appeared. A chilly aura suddenly floated out from inside, causing the three of them to shudder. The things inside are not simple. The spirit of the celestial pole list's eyes lit up. The three of them immediately walked forward. This time, the spirit of the celestial pole list and Qin Nan had learned their lesson and let the delicate youth walk in front. The stone cave was very deep. The three of them walked for 1,000 breaths, but they still didn't see the end. Instead, they felt colder and colder, and even had to use all their strength to expel the coldness. The walls around them were covered in layers of ice, emitting a faint glow. Finally, they arrived at the bottom. The place was not very big. It only covered an area of around 300 feet. At the center stood a faint golden crystal with the height of a person. A faint blue liquid was flowing inside it, emitting a breathtaking glow in the darkness. What's this? The spirit of the celestial pole list asked. This thing. The delicate youth was startled. He looked at it for a while before his face was filled with excitement. Holy crap, it's the eternal water. This was a famous primordial divine artifact in the myriad of worlds, and it possessed inconceivable effects. It can be used to refine weapons, improve your cultivation, and practice your arts. Qin Nan and the delicate youth exchanged glances with one another. The thing that could make the young man show such an expression was truly extraordinary. Wait! The delicate youth suddenly discovered something. He stared at the golden crystal and said, "This crystal must be an ancient forbidding formation. It has a strong defense." After saying that, he flicked his finger and shot out a ray of dazzling finger light that collided with the golden crystal. The golden crystal immediately released a shocking mystery and completely absorbed the power of the finger. It was as still as a mountain, leaving no trace and no sound. "What a terrifying defense!" Qin Nan exclaimed. Even though the young man was not using his full strength, he could easily kill an ordinary Heaven Highness with a flick of his finger. Chapter 2506. After that, the handsome young man flicked his 2 fingers and 2 rays of gentle light shot into the glabella of Qin Nan and the young man. The formation that the handsome young man passed to them was called the tripartite celestial formation. It was one of the ancient formations and possessed extremely powerful formation power. It could stack the power of the 3 to a whole new level. The meaning of the formation was concise and not very complicated. Qin Nan and the young man spent half an hour to master it completely. Heaven! The handsome young man's body swayed and he came to the Xian position. He sat down cross-legged and formed a seal with his hands. Earth! Human! The spirit of the heavens terminus ranking and Qin Nan moved to the other two positions and sat down with their legs crossed. As they formed the seal, mysterious formation runes appeared in the void and connected with each other to form a large formation. Swoosh! 3 rays of bright light shot up into the sky from the 3 of them. The handsome young man's light was red and he was 5 feet tall. The spirit of the celestial pole list's light was blue and he was 3 feet tall. Qin Nan's light was green and he was only 1 foot tall. The handsome young man and the spirit of the celestial pole list looked at Qin Nan at the same time. Qin Nan could not help but feel a little embarrassed. The 3 rays of light represented the power that they had released. Qin Nan released the least amount of power. Sigh, forget it. The handsome young man shook his head and sighed. The seal in his hand suddenly changed and he released the power of the formation, causing a vast and invisible force to enter his body. The handsome young man suddenly released a shocking pressure, causing the whole cave to tremble violently. It was as if he had broken through the shackles of a celestial master and reached the supreme celestial master realm. Seal of time, break! The handsome young man shouted and threw out a palm. In an instant, countless voices of gods and demons resounded in the cave. A force that seemed to have been mixed with endless time suddenly hit the golden crystal. Boom! The crystal shone brightly and at the same time trembled violently. A clear 5-fingered palm print was imprinted on it. It's working! The young man continued to execute various hand seals, causing the entire cave to emit a series of explosions, as strong gusts of wind were emitted. Just like that, after an hour, a layer of the thick golden crystal had been forcibly removed by the palm print. However, this golden crystal was 3 palms thick. With his current progress, the delicate young man would need to continuously strike it for a day and a night before he could shatter it. F***ck, I'm not going to fight anymore. The handsome young man said with a black face, if we continue to fight like this, I'll be exhausted to death. After saying this, he turned his head and looked straight at Qin Nan. Why are you looking at me? You want me to become a primary demi-immortal? Qin Nan's hair stood on end. Little brother Lin Lao. The delicate youth said bitterly, this tripartite immortal convergence formation can only be fully utilized by 3 people with equal strength. I don't expect you to release a lot of power, but at least it's not much different from the heavens. The spirit of the celestial pole list scolded unceremoniously. That's right, Xiaoji. You're too weak. Qin Nan was speechless for a while. Then what can I do? I haven't been a celestial venerable for long. It's already quite good that I can do this. The handsome young man sighed and did not speak anymore. He turned back to look at the eternal water that was close at hand. He looked at the blue light and his expression was uncertain. In the end, he seemed to have made a great decision. He gritted his teeth and said, how about this, brother? I'll do it. I'll teach you a move. You need to comprehend it as soon as possible. If you comprehend it, then you won't be too far away from the Ingtian realm. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list were both stunned. Then, the delicate youth said painfully, this is a secret that I won't pass on. Under normal circumstances, I will never take it out. So, after the matter is done, your share of the eternal water will belong to me, and that sword will also have to be given to me. Qin Nan finally understood that this guy was purely fooling him before. What about helping him become the Ingtian realm celestial venerable? That was all nonsense. He was willing to take it out now because the benefits were right in front of him. In order to save time, he had no choice but to do so. Okay, no problem. Qin Nan nodded. No matter what, at least he didn't bring this guy here in vain. Close your eyes. the delicate youth said. Then, he put his hands together and chanted an ancient incantation. Finally, he pushed his hands toward Qin Nan. A great mystery instantly enveloped Qin Nan. Qin Nan only felt as if a supreme torrent was surging in front of him. His soul rushed out of his body and directly rushed into the endless darkness. This is... Qin Nan was stunned. Then, he saw an unbelievable scene. He saw that his soul and consciousness had arrived in the boundless void. Behind him, the many stars that symbolized the heavens and realms were shining with different brilliance. In front of him, there was a mountain. This mountain stood in the cold darkness, quietly and motionlessly. It didn't emit any aura, but it made Qin Nan feel that it was incomparably majestic, as if it could support the heavens and earth. It also made Qin Nan feel that everything in the world was incomparable in front of it. Insignificant, it was the only one. Behind the heavens and realms, facing the world's Saint Mountain. This contains great mysteries and infinite truths. Calm your heart and chi, and comprehend it well, and master the will of the world's Saint Mountain. The delicate youth's voice rang in Qin Nan's heart. It was cold and majestic, like the great Tao. Qin Nan's heart was filled with astonishment, but he gradually calmed down as he enjoyed the marvelous scenery. At this moment, in the stone cave, the handsome young man's eyes were filled with admiration when he saw that he had entered the state so quickly. Then, he looked at the spirit of the heavens rank and narrowed his eyes. Heavens, how about I teach you a technique too? The spirit of the celestial pole list was alerted. What are you up to? The delicate youth straightened his face and said in a serious tone, Brother Lin Lao has just started to comprehend it. Even with his outstanding martial talent, it will take him at least a day to finish. Since we're both feeling a little bored, why don't I give you some guidance? The spirit of the celestial pole list was still cautious. It said in a doubtful tone, Why would you be so kind? The delicate youth's face darkened as he harumphed, Forget it if you don't trust me. Chapter 2507. The young man turned around and his eyes widened. What the F******K? The spirit of the celestial pole list was very calm. He had already accepted the fact that Lin Xiaoji was a freak when he was in the primary upper realm. That's not right. How is this possible? How could he comprehend the will of the sacred mountain at the beginning? The young man's face was filled with disbelief. He immediately used his eye technique to size up Qin Nan. Even if he really has a Xiantian martial body, it would take at least half a day. How could this be? He clearly knew how long it would take to comprehend the will of the sacred mountain. Back then, even he had to spend a full 4 hours to do so. Xiantian martial body? What's that? The spirit of the celestial pole list was startled and asked. The young man reacted and said blankly, What Xiantian martial body? What are you talking about? You just said it was the Xiantian martial body. Did I say that? You must have misheard. The spirit of the celestial pole list was defeated by the young man's pompous words. The young man no longer paid any attention to the spirit of the celestial pole list. He carefully sized up Qin Nan without saying a word. Time gradually passed. After an hour, Qin Nan's body suddenly emitted a mysterious glow. The spirit of the celestial pole list sensed that Qin Nan's aura, flesh, etc. were undergoing a mysterious transformation, as if he had consumed some kind of shocking natural treasure, resulting in a huge breakthrough. The spirit of the celestial pole list's eyes flickered with astonishment. He did not expect the move taught by the young man to Qin Nan would allow Qin Nan to gain such great benefit. At this moment, Qin Nan's eyes slowly opened. His heart was filled with joy. Now, there was a mountain in his heart. This mountain was not real, but it did exist. It continuously provided Qin Nan with energy, making Qin Nan feel as if he would never be exhausted, as if he could stand tall in the endless void and exist for eternity. Many thanks. Qin Nan bowed to the handsome young man, and also took out the immortal sword and handed it over. This time, the delicate young man had given him a great opportunity. His impression of the delicate and pretty young man had also become very good. His previous displeasure had disappeared without a trace. If he could gain so much from being tricked once, he was very willing to be tricked hundreds or thousands of times. Tsk tisk, you're not bad, kid. I underestimated you earlier. The handsome young man patted Qin Nan's shoulder and walked back to his Xian position. Let's try again. The three of them once again activated the tripartite immortal convergence formation. The light emitted from Qin Nan's body turned red, reaching a height of 20 feet. The delicate young man shouted and slapped out a seal. Compared to before, the power of this seal was actually several times stronger. Around 2 hours later, a huge hole was smashed open in the golden crystal. The icy aura released from the hole was several times stronger, causing a faint layer of ice to form on the three of them. After retrieving the eternal water, the spirit of the celestial pole list said, "Where should we go now? Should we continue to use the nail?" We had no choice at first, so we could only use the delusion-breaking immortal nail. Later on, we didn't use it if we could, in case we really entered a land of death. Don't worry, let me calculate first. The delicate young man repeated the same trick, but the last divination left him a little dumbfounded. He said, "From the divination, if we continue forward for another 100 feet, we will have a great harvest." They had now arrived at the entrance of the cave. If they continued forward for another 100 feet, they would have to break through the stone wall. Could there be more opportunities in this mountain? The three of them were moved and quickly made their moves. As soon as they made their moves, they found something strange. It was clearly just a mountain rock, but it seemed to be covered with a layer of invisible force, making it extremely hard. Even with their cultivation bases, they could only break through 10 feet with their full strength. After an hour, they had pierced through 1,000 feet, and another cave with a radius of several hundred feet appeared in front of them. There was nothing else in the cave, but the ground was engraved with mysterious patterns. This is a teleportation formation. Why did the 9-firmament immortal emperor make it so complicated? If we didn't find this teleportation formation, would we be trapped here? He's already a celestial emperor, but he's still so naughty. The delicate young man muttered a few words and stepped into the above the formation. The formation was activated, and an invisible force immediately shrouded the three of them, causing them to disappear on the spot. After a few breaths, they appeared in another place. As soon as they steadied themselves, they heard a series of deafening roars in their ears. At the same time, they also sensed that there were dozens of majestic auras that launched an extremely shocking battle. A confrontation. Qin Nan and the other two raised their heads and looked over. At this moment, they were in a palace with a radius of about 10,000 feet. The walls were engraved with many murals, exuding an ancient aura. In front of the palace stood 2 bronze doors, on which were engraved the words 9 and Night respectively. The word 9. The descendant of the great evolution heavenly sect, Dong Yang, young master Zhenli, Yen Er, and 2 other geniuses were fighting fiercely with the 10 primordial xenogeneics in front of the bronze doors. The 10 primordial xenogeneics were all golden-haired apes that were 30 feet tall. They held blood-red immortal rods in their hands, and they were extremely fast and powerful. They could use 5 different superpowers in one breath. They were several times stronger than the ones Qin Nan had encountered before. "It's you guys." Dong Yang, young master Zhenli, Yen Danqing, and the others instantly discovered something. When they glanced over, their expressions changed. This was especially true for Dong Yang, whose expression was as gloomy as young master Zhenli and the others. After Qin Nan and the other 2 left, they had collected the 3 divine items and entered a blessed land, where they obtained many benefits. After that, they had passed through many layers of danger to reach this place. This place was the most crucial grand restriction, which was called the Thousand Weapons Palace. There were thousands of palaces in the Thousand Weapons Palace, and more than half of them were extinction palaces. Although there were half of the Life Hall, only 33 of the ancient halls had tokens left behind. They had to destroy all of the tokens in order to proceed from the main palace to the land of inheritance. Because of this, Dong Yang had paid a huge price to deduce the location of the 33 ancient palaces. Then, he had ordered the other geniuses to spread out and destroy them. But now, the 3 people in front of him had actually arrived at the main hall so easily, and they could share the fruits of their victory without any effort. In comparison, the 3 of them were like the descendants of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect Master, who had received great care from the 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor. Chapter 2508. As soon as he finished speaking, the descendant of the Great Evolution Sect took out a token from his storage pouch. The token was about the size of a palm and was made of some kind of pitch-black wood. There were no patterns on it, nor were there any pictures. It looked ordinary, but it emitted a faintly discernible and terrifying pressure that made people tremble in fear. The Celestial Emperor's token? The handsome young man raised his eyebrows. "You're quite knowledgeable," Dong Yang said coldly. He immediately formed a strange hand seal and injected all the power in his body into the token. Buzz! The token trembled like a dragon shedding its skin, and it shone with 5 colors. The Celestial Emperor's token is equivalent to the Celestial Emperor's presence. All restrictions, listen to my command. All powers, gather on my body. Dong Yang roared, and the entire main hall shook. Countless runes appeared in the void, and waves of ethereal power flowed continuously. Endless streams of ethereal power entered his body. Immediately after, he struck out with lightning speed and unleashed countless chains. Each chain was like a divine dragon that had come to life. They exploded with an incomparable power and attacked the Archean Xenogeneic. The Archean Xenogeneics roared, and the murderous intent in their eyes receded. They looked terrified. The Celestial Emperor's token did not give Dong Yang much support. However, with this support, each of Dong Yang's super skills carried the aura of the 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor, which greatly suppressed the Archean Xenogeneics. Young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the other 4 immediately felt their bodies and minds relax. They were no longer targeted by the Archean Xenogeneic. The 5 of them instantly looked at Qin Nan and the handsome young man with cold eyes. "You really don't want to take the path to heaven, but instead you chose to come to hell," Yan Danqing sneered. His body suddenly turned into a long rainbow and rushed toward Qin Nan. Between the 2 culprits, he hated this person more. "Die!" Young Master Zhenli, Yen Er, and the other 3 all attacked the delicate youth in unison. Their killing intent was overwhelming. The delicate young man was already prepared. His figure flashed, and he slipped behind the spirit of the Celestial Pole List. The spirit of the Celestial Pole List wanted to get rid of him, but the delicate young man seemed to be glued to his back, never leaving him. "You are his accomplice, so you will die with him." Young Master Zhenli, Yen Er, and the other 2 were truly infuriated. They unleashed their unparalleled superpowers and enveloped the 2 of them. The spirit of the Celestial Pole List cursed inwardly, and then said indifferently, "If you want to take my life, just the few of you won't be enough. You'd better leave." Young Master Zhenli, Yen Er, and the others laughed out of anger. This person was really arrogant. The 4 of them were famous existences on the Myriad Realms list. If they joined forces, they could contend with an ordinary Supreme Holy Venerate. This person actually dared to say that they were not? Okay? When the spirit of the Celestial Pole List saw this, it shook its head and attacked like lightning. Boom! A terrifying aura exploded from his body. Instead of retreating, he moved forward at an astonishing speed. In an instant, he arrived in front of young Master Zhenli and the others. He did not use any mystique. Instead, He threw out a punch. Bang, bang, bang. The superpowers that young Master Zhenli and the others had unleashed were shattered and turned into nothingness. At the same time, their expressions changed at the same time. They felt as if there was a desolated river rushing toward them. Break! Young Master Zhenli shouted and unleashed a forbidden technique. Using the formless rules as a sword, he slashed out a dazzling sword qi and forcefully tore the formless force apart. On the other side, Yan Danqing had also arrived before Qin Nan. He held a sky-piercer halberd and pierced the sky full of dragon shadows. It was as if he wanted to tear Qin Nan and the heavens and earth into pieces. Great Unity Heaven Spell! Qin Nan transformed into the origin and threw out a punch. With a boom, the two of them retreated a few steps at the same time. Yan Danqing's eyes lit up slightly as he said, "I didn't expect you to have such power. It seems that I have underestimated you. However, you are no match for me." Streaks of purple gas gushed out from Yan Danqing's body and wrapped around his body. His entire being became extremely majestic, like an ancient emperor. Dynasty destruction. Yan Danqing swung his halberd again. It turned into a dazzling light spot, as if it could pierce through an ancient dynasty. Qin Nan's clothes fluttered in the wind. His eyes were sharp. He had to admit that Yan Danqing was very powerful. This move made him feel a huge amount of pressure. "It's a good opportunity to try out the move that I have just comprehended," Qin Nan muttered to himself. His figure suddenly disappeared from where he stood. Yan Danqing's eyes narrowed. Immediately after, he had an extremely bad feeling. He saw that Qin Nan had somehow appeared above him and dodged his move. Not only that, but an illusory mountain appeared above Qin Nan. It stood there quietly, causing everything to pale in comparison. Sacred mountain reappears, suppressing all heavens. Qin Nan's voice was like thunder as the mountain descended. Yan Danqing's expression changed drastically. He felt that everything around him was being completely suppressed by the illusory mountain. Even if he had mastered the ultimate escape technique, he could not avoid this move. He could only choose to take it head-on. Awakening all creation, Yan Danqing roared. He soared into the sky and thrust his halberd forward. From destruction to life. The artistic conception and other aspects of his move had been completely sublimated. The power it contained was undoubtedly more powerful. At the same time, on the other side, young Master Zhenli's group and the spirit of the Celestial Pole list had also exchanged dozens of blows at lightning speed. Shocking ripples spread out. "I didn't expect you to be a celestial master of the Ingtian realm." Young Master Zhenli's expression was gloomy as he said, "Sir, are you really going to protect these two evil thieves? These two evil thieves have deceived more than 30 of us. Sir, do you want to take all of us? Are you sure you want to do the right thing?" The spirit of the Celestial Pole list said indifferently, "I am ashamed that they have deceived you. However, Xiaoji is one of mine. If you want to kill him, you have to go through me first." Young Master Zhenli sneered and said, "If that's the case, there's nothing more to say. Although I am no match for you, don't think that you can resist the 4 of us just because you have reached the Ingtian realm." They were all famous existences on the 10,000 worlds list. They came from various major forces and possessed various means. They all had the combat strength to kill people above their level. Chapter 2509. As everyone knew, the Celestial Pole List and the Undying Cycle Mountain were innate treasures formed from the earliest part of the origin energy. As the weapon spirit of the Celestial Pole Leaderboard, it was different from Zhou Xuandao, the mountain spirit of the Undying Cycle Mountain. It was born with almost no restrictions. It completely controlled the Celestial Pole Leaderboard and could display the greatest power of the Celestial Pole Leaderboard. Not only that, when it was born, it was already extremely powerful. It knew all the rules and truths of the great upper world like the back of its hand. Moreover, it had never slacked off. Since the martial Tao of the great upper world had gradually developed, it had also been learning humbly, studying all kinds of cultivation methods and superpowers. After tens of thousands of years, its accumulation naturally reached an extremely terrifying level. Although it could only be considered an empyrean of the responsive heaven realm, its every move was fused with the momentum of the entire great upper realm. It was as if the entire great upper realm was supporting it. How could an ordinary responsive heaven realm empyrean compare to it? Even a celestial lord of the path realm could be slightly better than it. Moreover, this was not its peak battle power. If this was the great upper world, if it used the celestial pole list, how can you control the power of a realm? Are you the legendary heir of the world? Young Master Zhenli and the other three were shocked. Wasn't the heir of Kunlun's realm an ancient legend? Did it really exist? However, they didn't have the time to think about it at all. An unprecedented feeling of danger exploded in their hearts, and it caused them to instantly recover from their shock. They roared loudly in unison as they utilized their trump cards and utilized numerous ancient immortal artifacts and immortal cores. Ancient talismans. Boom. The immortal artifacts shattered and the talismans collapsed. Young Master Zhenli and the other three geniuses all spat out blood as they were sent flying by the remaining power, crashing into the distance. At the same time, there was another loud boom. Qin Nan used the will of the sacred mountain to shatter Yen Donqing's strongest attack, severely injuring him. All of them lost? The descendant of the great evolution heavenly sect was shocked and in disbelief. Before coming to the great evolution sacred palace, he had tested the cultivation of young Master Zhenli and the others, so he knew what kind of battle power they had. But now, the four of them couldn't even defeat one person. Most importantly, Prince Zhenli and the others had been defeated in less than a minute. This meant that the other party was definitely holding back. Could it be that these two are the closed-door disciples of those top powers? A thought popped up in his mind. All of a sudden, the door with the word 9 and firmament on it shuddered violently, as a desolate aura burst out from it. The runes on the door began to glow, as if they had come alive. Oh no! Dong Yang, young Master Zhenli, Yen Danqing, and the others all paled. The recovery of the double doors meant that the other geniuses had destroyed the 33 tokens, allowing them to enter the place of succession of the 9 firmament immortal emperor. Huh? The door opened by itself? Ha! Heavens, our luck is not bad. Let's quickly enter the door. The handsome young man's eyes lit up when he discovered something. His figure immediately turned into a rainbow light and charged straight ahead. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list both felt their hearts tremble slightly as they soared into the sky. Don't even think about it. Dong Yang roared and withdrew the celestial emperor's order. The primordial xenogeneics immediately lost their restraints and let out a series of roars. Several of them locked their gazes on Qin Nan and the other two. Stop them! Young Master Zhenli and the others yelled, and unleashed their techniques again. Although they had been defeated, it did not mean that they would give up the inheritance that they had worked so hard to open. Void Realm. The spirit of the celestial pole list unleashed a terrifying divine power. Its giant hand pressed down, and the entire hall rumbled. An invisible world suddenly condensed and pressed down on all the cultivators and primordial xenogeneic. No matter how hard they tried, they could not break it. It broke open. Heavens, well done! The handsome young man exclaimed. He took the lead and stepped into the door, followed by Zhi Xiling and Qin Nan of the celestial pole list. The moment the handsome young man entered the door, he immediately formed a mysterious seal, causing 4 ghost gods to appear on the 2 doors. They glared angrily, preventing anyone from approaching. D***eminent. They even sealed the door. The faces of Dong Yang and the others darkened. Boom. At this moment, The void realm formed by the spirit of the celestial pole list was finally broken through by the cultivators and the primordial xenogeneic. Taoist Zhenli, the three of you go and stop these primordial xenogeneic. The rest of you go and break this seal. Dong Yang shouted. Although he was in a terrible mood, he did not lose his mind. Okay. Young Master Zhenli and the others moved in unison. Dong Yang looked at the four ghost god seals, and his expression changed. Then, he sent a strand of his divine thought to the token in his storage bag. He said bitterly, "My lord, I didn't do a good job. They got in before me." Soon, a cold voice rang out. "You didn't do a good job this time. I won't argue with you for now. There's still room for negotiation. You." At the same time, Qin Nan and the other two felt their bodies lighten. They had arrived at another world. They looked up and saw that the sky was gray without any light. In the distance, there was a blood-red altar that was 300 feet tall and 10,000 feet wide. On the edge of the altar, there were stone pillars carved with all kinds of demonic beast patterns. They looked very vicious. In the middle of the altar, there was a white jade platform with two items on it. Tai Supreme Heaven Yellow Stone? The handsome young man discovered something and became excited. Really? Qin Nan and the other two were also shocked. They quickly looked at the two items. The item on the left was a palm-sized crystal token. It had a dim luster and many engravings on it. It did not look special. Next to it was a stone half the size of a fist. It was yellow in color. If one looked closely, one could see that there was a faint mist floating around the stone. This was the Tai Supreme Heaven Yellow Stone. Chapter 25:10. Qin Nan and his companions felt their hair standing on end. They subconsciously looked for the source of the voice. Behind them, a man in a white robe had appeared. His long hair reached his shoulders, and he had a smile on his face. An ancient bronze sword was hanging on his waist, making him look like an ancient sword immortal who had transcended the mortal world. 9 Firmament Immortal Emperor? The handsome young man swallowed his saliva and asked tentatively. That's me. The 9 Firmament Immortal Emperor said with a smile. Qin Nan and his companions let out a sigh of relief. The 9 Firmament Immortal Emperor had already passed away. Now that he had shown up, he must have left a will behind when he set up the Cave of Inheritance. Such a thing was very common in the martial world. However, the 9 Firmament Immortal Emperor's sudden appearance had given them a fright. Your Excellency Immortal Emperor, you've shown up at the right time. I'll take the supreme black-yellow rock you've left behind. By the way, Your Excellency Immortal Emperor, where did you leave your inheritance? The handsome young man said shamelessly, I'm born extraordinary and have a bright future. I'm sure I'll be able to carry forward your orthodoxy and shock the heavens and realms. The 9 Firmament Immortal Emperor burst into laughter and said, You're dreaming. Do you really think you can get my inheritance with just a simple sentence? However, I don't mind telling you that you're not bad, but unfortunately, you're not destined to be with me. Don't think too much about the inheritance I've left behind. The handsome young man was not discouraged. He rolled his eyes and pointed at Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list. He said, Are they destined to be with you? The 9 Firmament Immortal Emperor shook his head. Sigh, forget it, then we won't be thinking about your inheritance. Brother, my God, let's take the supreme black-yellow rock and leave this place. The handsome young man flew toward the altar with flagging interest. However, when he was about to step onto the altar, the obscure runes suddenly emitted wisps of brilliance. An invisible force was released from them and completely blocked the handsome young man's path. The 9 Firmament Immortal Emperor said with a faint smile, Kid, aren't you being too optimistic? Just take away the supreme black-yellow rock so easily? The handsome young man blushed. In fact, he was not interested in the inheritance of the 9 Firmament Immortal Emperor. What he said just now was just to confuse the public. Isn't it just a piece of supreme black yellow stone? You, a dignified, immortal emperor, are actually so stingy. The delicate young man muttered softly. In fact, it didn't matter if he spoke softly or not. The nine-firmament immortal emperor would definitely hear him. However, he wanted to act as if he didn't want the immortal emperor to hear him. You're right. You were able to pass through the layers of obstacles to come here. Although you are not fated with my inheritance, there is more or less some fate. Letting you take away a piece of the supreme profound Yellowstone is indeed not a big deal. Heavenly firmament immortal emperor's smile did not diminish. Yes, I left behind more than just this stone. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list both looked at the crystal token next to the supreme black yellow stone. The handsome young man's eyes flashed and he pretended to be disdainful. Isn't it just a lousy token? What's the big deal? Nine Firmament's immortal emperor raised his eyebrows and said, A broken token? Your personality is not good, so don't speak carelessly in the future. This token is no ordinary token. When the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect was still around, it had another name, the Great Evolution Sacred Token. The spirit of the celestial pole list curiously asked, Senior Immortal Emperor, what is the use of this sacred decree of great evolution? Immortal Emperor Nine Firmament explained, The function is very simple. As long as anyone gathers 3 tokens, they will be able to open the true inheritance of the Grand Development Heavenly Sect. Then, they will participate in the trial and obtain the inheritance after passing. Apart from that, 3. This holy badge has another function after it is collected. He paused for a moment before continuing, You will have the opportunity to comprehend the shocking secrets hidden in the Dian World Mountain. What? The handsome young man exclaimed, Are you telling the truth? The emperor glanced at him and said, I don't lie. F***CK. The true inheritance of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect, the shocking secrets of the Dian World Mountain. The handsome young man's eyes were burning as he stared at the sacred decree of great evolution with saliva almost dripping down. Qin Nan's heart slightly moved as he thought about the young man asking him to comprehend the mountain intent of the Dian World Mountain. This was definitely not something an ordinary person could do, but the young man was able to do it. Clearly, he had already grasped some secret of the Dian World Mountain. The spirit of the celestial pole list was also burning with passion. Senior Immortal Emperor, just give us a straightforward answer. How can we obtain these 2 items? Very simple, I have already placed 33 seals on this altar. If you can break them, then you can take these 2 items. The Emperor said. However, the Sacred Order of Expanse has a command that it will pick the fated ones and use force to break them. Those who cannot be subdued. Before he could finish, the handsome young man couldn't help but say, Wait, did you say 33 restrictions? Immortal Emperor Nine Firmament was not angry and smiled. Yes, 33 restrictions. It's obvious that you won't be able to break them with your current cultivation. However, there's no need to be discouraged. Since you're the first batch to come here, I'll give you some benefits. I'll treat you with. Before he could finish, the handsome young man burst out laughing proudly. Brother, heavens, just watch how I'm going to break the restrictions and obtain the treasures. After saying that, his eyes turned golden. His hands also turned golden. Following it, he appeared at the edge of the altar with a flicker. His hands turned into countless shadows as he slapped forward. Even though Qin Nan and the young man did not discover anything, they could sense a shocking energy rippling from the altar. If they were careless, even with their cultivation, they would not be able to resist it. The sacred hand of the heavens and earth? Immortal Emperor Nine Firmament squinted. I didn't expect to see the sacred hand of the heavens and earth again. What's the relationship between this young man and the people of that tribe? If this young man is from that tribe, does it mean that the tribe is about to reappear? Immortal Emperor Nine Firmament fell into deep thought. Bang bang bang. Chapter 25:11. Ha ha ha, brother, heavens, I'll give you half of the highest profound yellow rock, and the rest is mine. What do you think? The young man laughed complacently. No problem. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list had no objections. It was all thanks to the young man that they were able to come here and obtain these two items. Even if the young man did not give them anything, they did not think it was a big deal. The young man reached out his hand to grab the highest profound yellow rock and the great evolution sacred badge. However, just as the hand of light was about to grab the two items, the sacred badge of Dian suddenly trembled. An invisible force burst out and forcefully pushed the hand of light back. You dare to resist me? The young man was furious. A monstrous aura rushed out of his body. Half of it was God and the other half was devil. He grabbed forward again. Unlike last time, there were countless patterns of gods and devils intertwined in the center of his palm, and a force of imprisonment spread out. The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor saw this with a half-smile. Boom! The great evolution sacred badge seemed to be angry. It emitted a dazzling light and an unstoppable force that directly shattered the hand of light. The young man's eyes narrowed. He wanted to make another move, but the great evolution sacred badge flew up on its own and circled around Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list. Then, it rushed into the forehead of the spirit of the celestial pole list with lightning speed and disappeared. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list were startled. Damn you! The young man's face darkened. Ha, little friend, as I said before, the great evolution sacred badge will only choose the fated one. You can't subdue it with force. The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor gloated. How am I not the fated one? The young man rolled his eyes and looked at the spirit of the celestial pole list affectionately. He said, Heavens, how have I treated you along the way? If I can gather all three great evolution sacred badges. The spirit of the celestial pole list had goosebumps and quickly said, Stop! You don't have to say anything more. If I can really gather all three of them, I will definitely bring you in with me. The delicate youth beamed from ear to ear and hurriedly put away the Taishang yellow stone. This time, he was not stopped again. Little friends, you have already obtained the two items I left behind. The fate between us has come to an end. I will send you off now. The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor said. Many thanks, Senior. The three bowed and nodded in agreement. Obtaining the sacred token of great evolution by chance could be considered a pleasant surprise. Next, he had to think of a way to find the remaining two tokens. Suddenly, whooshing sounds were heard. Many figures appeared one after another. They were Dong Yang, young Master Zhenli, Yen Danqing, and the rest of the geniuses. Altar. Dong Yang's gaze landed on the altar. When he saw that it was empty, even though he had been prepared for this, his expression darkened. These three guys actually took away the sacred badge of great evolution. Wasn't this token only available to the fated? Could it be that these three were the fated ones? You! Dong Yang was about to shout angrily when he suddenly saw everything in front of him. He could not help but tremble violently. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, Greetings, Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor. Young Master Zhenli and the rest were shocked and quickly bowed. A descendant of an elder? The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor glanced around and immediately saw through Dong Yang's bloodline. He smiled faintly and said, What a pity! You are one step too late. You should leave now. Dong Yang's expression changed. He hurriedly said, Senior Immortal Emperor, please give me a chance. Previously, we were the ones breaking all kinds of restrictions, but we didn't expect these three thieves to take advantage of a loophole and enter here first. Before he could finish, the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor waved his hand and interrupted him. There is no need to say such things. Regardless of the reason, whoever entered first is the one who entered first. A trace of displeasure from the Immortal Emperor, even though it was only a trace of the immortal emperor's will, instantly chilling Dong Yang's heart and calming him down. Senior Immortal Emperor, you are right. Indeed, we are not as skilled as them. Dong Yang respectfully cupped his hands and said, however, Sir Immortal Emperor, I have been preparing for several years for the sacred decree of great evolution. I am not willing to give up. Please, Sir Immortal Emperor, for the sake of this item, please make an exception and give me another chance. Dong Yang then took out a red handkerchief that was emitting a faint light. The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor's eyes narrowed when he saw this item. He immediately reached out and took the handkerchief. This item, he murmured to himself. There was a trace of reminiscence and a trace of reluctance in his eyes. When Qin Nan and the other two saw this, they suddenly had a bad feeling. The handsome young man hurriedly said, Hey, Senior Immortal Emperor, you are a dignified Immortal Emperor. You can't go back on your words, right? The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor did not speak. He just looked at the handkerchief. When Dong Yang and the others saw this, they were anxious. They were not very sure whether they could succeed or not. After a while, the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor looked at Qin Nan and the other two. He sighed and said, Indeed, as an Immortal Emperor, I can't go back on my words. However, there are always some people and things that make me put down my pride as an Immortal Emperor. My three young friends, I am sorry. I have to give this opportunity to him. When the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor said this, Dong Yang and the others were overjoyed. Dong Yang secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, Master is far-sighted and prepared a backup plan in advance. Otherwise, if I can't bring the sacred decree of great evolution over, I am afraid. Dong Yang seemed to have thought of something terrible, and he shuddered. Qin Nan and the other two's faces darkened. They were naturally very unhappy. However, the Immortal Emperor had spoken. What could they do? The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor looked at Dong Yang and said lightly, I am only giving you a chance. Whether you can get the sacred decree of great evolution in the end depends on you. For the sake of fairness, it is better to use the ancient ritual and decide the treasure with strength. You can choose from the three of them. You can choose any one of them and use any means. If you win, I will ask them to hand over the sacred decree of great evolution. If you lose, you can leave on your own. Do you have any objections? Qin Nan and the other two were stunned. A battle to decide the treasure? Dong Yang and the other two's faces changed immediately. They hurriedly said, Senior Immortal Emperor, this method of battle is unacceptable. Why don't we have a free-for-all, or... They had witnessed the combat strength of Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list with their own eyes. The peerless sacred mountain that Qin Nan had summoned and the spirit of the heavenly fate ranking could control the entire world with a single move. Dong Yang was no match for it. The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor's eyes turned cold. He said firmly, It is decided. If you don't want to do this, you can leave. Dong Yang and the other two's hearts turned cold. Senior Immortal Emperor, I am willing to fight. Dong Yang had no choice but to agree. If he angered the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor, he would lose his chance. However, his heart was filled with bitterness. He did not expect that he would not be able to change the outcome of the battle. Fellow Taoist Dong Yang, a battle is fine. At this time, young Master Zhen Li suddenly transmitted his voice to Su Mo. What the Celestial Emperor said was for you to choose one from the three of them, not for them to choose one from our side. Moreover, Lin Xiaoji is a middle-aged man. Although he and the middle-aged man are very powerful, the aura of that young man is quite ordinary. With your cultivation, you can definitely defeat him. Fellow Taoist Dong Yang, a battle is a good thing. Among the three, the young man's cultivation is obviously not very strong. When we fought in the hall earlier, the young man did not dare to fight. Fellow Taoist Dong Yang, you can choose that young man. When we met the three of them earlier, the young man ran away as soon as he saw us. Obviously, his cultivation is not good enough. Yan Danqing and the other geniuses transmitted their voices to Dong Yang. How could I forget about him? Dong Yang's eyes lit up as he looked at the young man. Indeed, based on various details, the young man was obviously the weakest among the three. Even if the young man was good at fighting, he was definitely not as strong as Lin Xiaoji and the middle-aged man. Therefore, Dong Yang could easily defeat him. What are you looking at? The young man said unhappily. You are quite arrogant. Dong Yang sneered and pointed his finger at the young man. Senior Immortal Emperor, in that case, I choose to fight with him. Now that he thought about it, it was this young man who took out the delusion-breaking immortal nail that led to the current situation. Therefore, he wanted to settle the score with this young man and teach him a lesson. However, Qin Nan, the spirit of the celestial pole list, and even the 9 firmament immortal emperor had a strange look in their eyes. Chapter 25:12. His words and expressions were impassioned, as if he had the moral high ground. Fellow cultivator Dong Yang, I really admire you for having such an awareness. This battle belongs to you, fellow cultivator Dong Yang. I can't interfere, so I can only lend you the exquisite celestial pagoda to help you. Young Master Zhenli said. He took out a small pagoda from his pouch. The pagoda had 7 floors. On each floor, there were carvings of Jiotian goddesses with blurry faces. Under the hazy light emitted by the pagoda, the goddesses seemed to have come alive and were dancing gracefully. It was an extraordinary sight. The grade of this treasure had surpassed that of an ordinary celestial artifact. It was given to young Master Zhenli by his master, and it was one of his 3 trump cards. Since fellow cultivator Dong Yang is using this treasure to help us, how can we ignore it? Fellow cultivator Dong Yang, this is the 3 Suns Divine Talisman. It can be activated 3 times. Each time, it can summon the 3 mysterious divine flames to burn down all divine objects. Yan Danqing quickly followed up. Fellow cultivator Dong Yang, I don't have any treasure or celestial talisman. However, I have a painting made by my master. It contains my master's artistic conception. Even an ordinary supreme celestial master would not be able to resist it. Fellow cultivator Dong Yang, let me lend you a saber. This saber is made from a drop of the Emperor's blood essence and many other rare treasures. It took him 33 years to refine it. The geniuses behind Dong Yang spoke one after another. They took out different treasures that shone with different lights and emitted powerful auras. These geniuses were not ordinary. They were the last disciples of various big forces and had a strong foundation. Thank you, fellow cultivators. With your help, I will definitely win this battle. Dong Yang was overjoyed as he took the treasures. The corners of young Master Zhenli and the others' mouths curled into a cold smile. Although they all thought that the handsome young man's combat strength was ordinary and he was definitely no match for fellow cultivator Dong Yang, they still did this just in case. As for why they gave the treasures to Dong Yang so openly, it was because they wanted to intimidate the handsome young man and make him cower before the battle. Once he was cowardly, the handsome young man would naturally be defeated. The 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor's eyes became more and more strange, but he did not speak. On the other hand, the spirit of the celestial pole list glared at them and shouted, "Aren't you guys going too far? We agreed on a fair battle, but you actually gave him so many treasures. How can we fight like this?" On the surface, he said this, but he didn't forget to secretly send a voice transmission to the delicate youth. Be careful when you attack later. Don't break those treasures. Try your best to snatch all of them. The exquisite immortal pagoda and the ancient painting were both very valuable. Interested, Qin Nan also secretly sent a sound transmission. I still don't have a suitable weapon. That blade is very good. Remember not to damage it. Bring it to me. The delicate young man's expression was ugly. Damn it, with so many people and so many treasures, why is there not a single sword? Young Master Zhenli sneered and said, Fellow Taoist, this is indeed a fair battle. We are merely lending our treasures to Taoist Dongyang. Senior Celestial Emperor, this is not against the rules, is it? The Nine Firmament Celestial Emperor sighed. Not only did they take the initiative to deliver their lives, but they also wanted to give away their treasures. How could this be against the rules? Therefore, he shook his head and said, No, it's not against the rules. Upon hearing this, young Master Zhenli and the others had a mocking look in their eyes. In their opinion, the spirit of the Celestial Pole List's words meant that the spirit of the Celestial Pole List and the others were not confident. It also meant that the delicate young man's cultivation base was not high. There was no doubt that they would win this battle. Let's start now, the Nine Firmament Celestial Emperor said. With a flick of his finger, strands of bright light fell on the altar and formed a fence. He said, There's no time limit for this battle. You are not allowed to kill, and you are not allowed to cripple your opponent's cultivation base. Don't overdo it. That's enough. Both of you, come up to the stage. Dong Yang's confidence skyrocketed. He instantly turned into a ray of light and landed on the altar, looking askance at the delicate young man. On the other hand, the delicate young man pulled a long face and slowly walked forward step by step. He was not too happy about it. He had no interest in fighting a cultivator like Dong Yang. Besides, he would not gain any benefits from the battle. Instead, it would benefit the spirit of the Celestial Pole List and Qin Nan. However, in Dong Yang's eyes, his behavior was seen as cowardice. Dong Yang sneered and said, Don't dawdle. Don't worry, I'll go easy on you this time. At most, I'll break your legs. The Nine Firmament Celestial Emperor, Qin Nan, and the spirit of the Celestial Pole List wanted to laugh, but they had no choice but to hold it in as it was inappropriate. The handsome young man's face darkened even more. His figure flashed decisively and landed on the altar. He said angrily, Why did you choose me of all people? Can't you pick Brother Lin Lao instead? Dong Yang looked at him, as if he was looking at an idiot. Why did I pick you? Don't you understand? It's because you're the weakest. Enough with the nonsense, I have a lot of artifacts. It's indeed unfair to you. I'll let you make the first move. Dong Yang said proudly with his hands behind him. You're letting me make the first move? The delicate young man's lips twisted. Damn it, he's going too far. The delicate young man did not want to waste any more time. He instantly appeared beside Dong Yang and threw a punch forward. Dong Yang was startled, but he reacted quickly. He raised his hand and executed a mystical art. It summoned the illusionary figure of a black tortoise and blocked the punch. I didn't expect you to be so capable, Dong Yang said proudly. Unfortunately, you've stumbled into me today. Following this, the Linglong Immortal Pagoda and the other 5 immortal weapons were activated at the same time. They unleashed a shocking aura and various mystical intents that encapsulated the altar. Dong Yang also executed a mystical art in his body. His aura skyrocketed and became magnificent. Dong Yang's strength was indeed impressive. He was only slightly weaker than geniuses like young Master Zhenli and Yan Danqing. Drop to your knees first, Dong Yang yelled. He fully unleashed the power of the 6 immortal weapons and fired 6 tremendous attacks at the delicate young man. This attack is enough to seriously injure the young man. Young Master Zhenli and the others nodded slightly. The outcome of the battle had been decided. You think you can make me kneel down? Humph, do you really think I'm a piece of trash if I don't show my power? Chapter 25:13. Dong Yang's eyes narrowed as he felt a chill in his heart. What's going on? Young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others were shocked. In the blink of an eye, the handsome young man moved. He took a step forward and made a grabbing motion. A majestic and invisible force suddenly descended and crushed the 6 divine auras into pieces. Collect. The delicate young man waved his hand, and the 6 immortal artifacts buzzed in unison as if they were being summoned by an ancient power. They flew directly towards the delicate young man and shrank continuously before finally entering the delicate young man's storage pouch. Dong Yang was shocked. He could not believe what he had just seen. He had taken the 6 celestial artifacts from him with just a grab and a wave of his hand? Even a supreme, heavenly venerate powerhouse would not be able to do that. He is a celestial master of the Tao realm. Young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others were also shocked. As geniuses from various factions, they knew very well what it meant to be in the Tao realm. Even in the entire universe, there were only a handful of celestial masters of the Tao realm. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list could not help but smile. They had seen the handsome young man's strength and knew that he was extraordinarily powerful. In the end, who knew that this group of people would choose anyone but the delicate and pretty young man? Seeing this, the 9 heavens celestial emperor could not help but sigh. The great evolution heavenly sect has declined. I did not expect the descendants of the elders to be so foolish. At this moment, the handsome young man attacked again. He slapped his palm toward Dong Yang. In an instant, it was as if a sacred mountain had descended from the heavens, pressing down on Dong Yang's spine. He immediately let out a cry of agony, unable to resist at all, and was directly pressed down on the ground, causing a loud rumbling sound to ring out. I admit, Dong Yang was instantly afraid. He no longer had any other thoughts. He only wanted to admit defeat. A glint flashed across the young man's eyes. With a flick of his finger, he sealed Dong Yang's mouth with an invisible force. Dong Yang widened his eyes in shock. No matter how hard he tried, he was unable to make any sound at all. Dong Yang was about to use his consciousness to transmit a message, but a formless power suddenly descended upon his sea of consciousness and sealed it completely. Dong Yang's eyes trembled. What kind of technique was this? He couldn't even admit defeat? Humph, now that I've made my move, it won't end so easily. The handsome young man shook his wrist and approached Dong Yang step by step. He used the saintly hand of heaven and earth again and reached into Dong Yang's storage pouch. He immediately took out all the treasures that young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others had given him. Heavens, this is yours. Brother, the saber you wanted. Damn it, he didn't even bring a sword. Seeing this, young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others trembled. Their hearts were bleeding. The treasures that they had given to Dong Yang were their most important trump card. Now, the handsome young man had taken all of them. The handsome young man emptied his storage pouch and kicked Dong Yang out of the altar. This fellow Taoist has won this battle. The great evolution sacred badge will still belong to them. The 9 firmament immortal emperor said indifferently, I've given you a chance. You don't have to stay here anymore. Leave now. The spirit of the celestial pole list said with a smile, Fellow Taoists, we welcome you back. Dong Yang, young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others were so angry that they almost vomited blood. Dong Yang, I'm not done with you. Young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others growled in their hearts and glared at Dong Yang. Dong Yang shuddered uncontrollably, and he was no longer as impassioned as he was before. This group of people came quickly and left quickly as well. The hall once again regained its silence. My 3 little friends, you should leave too. The 9 firmament immortal emperor smiled again. He waved his hand, and countless light talismans descended from the sky and formed a door. Hey, senior immortal emperor, you broke the rules and almost caused us to lose the great evolution sacred badge. Are you going to send us away just like that? Shouldn't you give us some compensation? The handsome young man complained. The 9 firmament immortal emperor said unhappily, You've taken so many treasures. Are you still not satisfied? The handsome young man muttered, What kind of treasures are those? There's not even a sword. Qin Nan immediately stepped forward and cupped his hands. Senior Immortal Emperor, he's just talking nonsense. Please don't take it to heart. We'll leave now. The three of them walked toward the light door. The harvest from this trip was already very bountiful. Wait. Suddenly, the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor stopped them. He sighed and said, "You're right. As an Immortal Emperor, I broke the rules. It's only right for me to give you some compensation." The eyes of the three lit up. The handsome young man was even more excited. "Do you have a sword?" "I don't have a sword here." The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor smiled faintly. "However, I can give you something else. Didn't I say earlier that you need to gather 3 Great Evolution Sacred Badges to obtain the true inheritance of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect?" The spirit of the Celestial Pole List's heart skipped a beat. "Senior, you mean?" The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor nodded slightly. "You're right. I can tell you where the remaining 2 Great Evolution Sacred Badges are. How about this compensation?" Of course, this was a great compensation. If they had to rely on themselves to find the remaining 2 Great Evolution Sacred Badges, they would have to waste a lot of time. Whether they could find them in the end was still a big question. Wait a moment. I'm just a wisp of consciousness now. I need to calculate. The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor formed a magical seal with one hand. Rays of holy light shone on his fingertips. Suddenly, the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor squinted his eyes. "Senior, what's wrong?" Qin Nan asked curiously. "Don't tell me you didn't calculate it." The handsome young man's face was full of vigilance. He always felt that the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor was not reliable. "That's not it." The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor pondered and said, "It's just that things are a little beyond my expectations. As for the specifics, I can't explain it clearly in a few words. However, I can tell you that the remaining 2 Great Evolution Sacred Badges have already been gathered. They've gathered together." Chapter 25:14. Qin Nan and the other 2 frowned. Someone had their eyes on the Sacred Order of Great Development? Did that mean Dong Yang was under someone else's orders? Dong Yang was a descendant of an elder, and his strength was not weak either. If someone wanted to order him around, is it the sect master or a descendant of an immortal emperor? Qin Nan and the other 2 thought of the same thing. "I can tell you that it's a descendant of an immortal emperor," the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor said meaningfully. "Plus, the situation is very complicated this time. It might not be a good thing for you to get the Sacred Order of Great Development, but it might be a bad thing. Do you want me to help you get the Sacred Order of Great Development?" The handsome young man snorted. "So what if he's a descendant of an immortal emperor?" The spirit of the Celestial Pole List was not afraid at all. "Senior Immortal Emperor, there's no need to trouble you. No matter who he is, I don't have the habit of handing over the things I've obtained." Qin Nan asked, "Senior Immortal Emperor, can you tell us where the Immortal Emperor's descendant is?" The eyes of the handsome young man and the spirit of the Celestial Pole List lit up. That's right. The enemy already had 2 sacred orders of great development. If they could find the Immortal Emperor's descendant and make a move on him, wouldn't they be able to easily get the 3 sacred orders of great development? You're quite bold to want to take the initiative to find the Immortal Emperor. The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor laughed. "It's not that troublesome. I'm sure the enemy already knows what happened here. After you leave this place, the enemy will find a way to find you. Brothers." Then, the Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor suddenly flicked his finger, shooting out 3 immortal lights that entered the bodies of Qin Nan and the other 2. "Since the Sacred Order of Great Development has been found, I can't help you. These 3 wisps of will might be able to help you at a critical moment. Consider it my compensation." The Nine Firmament Immortal Emperor smiled faintly. "The Immortal Emperor's descendant is stronger than you think. You must be strong. You must not underestimate them. Qin Nan and the other two cupped their fists. Thank you, Senior. After that, the three of them did not waste any more words. They walked into the door and disappeared. 30 breaths later, Qin Nan's group of 3 appeared on top of a mountain. They looked around and could only see red clouds. They couldn't see the heritage ground left behind by immortal Emperor 9 firmament. Clearly, it had been transported far away. Suddenly, the spirit of the celestial pole list raised its eyebrows and said, "That's fast." He performed a hand seal with one hand and slapped forward. Rays of white light entered the rift and slowly turned into a long-haired young man with a blurry face. "I am Zhang Bufan." The long-haired young man looked at the spirit of the celestial pole list. His tone was flat, and there was an innate arrogance in it. What he didn't know was that through the great evolution sacred token in the spirit of the celestial pole list's divine thought, the spirit of the celestial pole list had already materialized into the world through some miraculous means. In his eyes, there was only the spirit of the celestial pole list. "Just call me Brother Tian." The spirit of the celestial pole list's tone was also flat. "Brother Tian?" Zhang Bufan was slightly startled and felt a little displeased. The spirit of the celestial pole list clearly wanted to take advantage of him by calling him Brother Tian. "If fellow Taoist doesn't want to say it, then forget it," Zhang Bufan said. "I won't talk nonsense. We already have 2 great evolution sacred tokens, and we still lack the one in fellow Taoist's hand. As long as fellow Taoist is willing to give it to us, we will open the great evolution sacred token when the time comes. After opening the true inheritance of the great expanse heavenly sect, you can choose one of the medicine refinement pavilions, immortal spell pavilions, and so on. What do you think?" The spirit of the heavens rank sneered and said, "Do you think I'm a fool? Let's not talk about the real secret of the great evolution world mountain after the 3 tokens are gathered. Besides, why don't you give me 2 great evolution sacred tokens, apart from the Hall of Succession? Why don't I give you the rest of the halls?" Qin Nan and the young man could not help but laugh. This Zhang Bufan really had a good plan. Zhang Bufan's blurry eyes flickered with lightning as his voice turned cold. "Fellow Taoist, are you not willing to give up on the succession of the great evolution heavenly sect and want to compete with us?" The spirit of the celestial pole list nodded. "Of course, the great evolution sacred token has chosen me, which means I'm destined to inherit the great evolution heavenly sect. How can I give up just like that? In my opinion, why don't we work together and open the succession? When the time comes, as for who can obtain the inheritance, that will depend on their ability." Zhang Bufan let out a hollow laugh. "Fellow Taoist, we already have 2 great evolution sacred tokens, but you only have 1. Won't we be at a disadvantage if we open it together? Besides, do you really want to go against us? Even though the 3 of you are strong and have reached the Tao realm, the celestial venerables of the lower realms, but don't forget this is the great evolution world mountain, not some other place. Besides, I don't mind telling you that most of the geniuses who have come to the great evolution world mountain have already been recruited by us. Young Master Zhenli and the others that you've seen are only a part of them." The young man curled his lips and said, "Heavens, tell him, have you heard of a forbidden spell called the 9 Sorcerer Gods Sob?" The spirit of the celestial pole list understood and said the 9 Sorcerer Gods sob calmly. The lightning in Zhang Bufan's eyes surged as if he was enraged. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list did not know the specific effects of the 9 Sorcerer Gods sob, but Zhang Bufan knew that it was an ancient forbidden spell that could restrain the great evolution sacred token and shatter it. In Zhang Bufan's opinion, the spirit of the celestial pole list was obviously threatening him. "Very well, I didn't expect you to have mastered an ancient forbidden spell." Zhang Bufan suppressed his anger and said, "In that case, please come to the ascending balcony." After saying that, Zhang Bufan's body shattered, and turned into countless light spots. The situation doesn't look good. I didn't expect Zhang Bufan to have invited most of the geniuses. It seems like he has been planning this for a long time and has laid out various plans. The spirit of the celestial pole list frowned. Moreover, as the descendant of the celestial emperor, Zhang Bufan must know more about the Great Evolution World Mountain and the Great Evolution Sky Sect. Chapter 25:15. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list's eyes lit up. This was a good thing for them. They could take advantage of this opportunity to break through to the supreme celestial realm. However, the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor said that the situation is complicated. So, it's definitely not as simple as it seems. It's very likely that there are other descendants of the celestial emperors besides Zhang Bufan, the handsome young man said. Think carefully, it's impossible for Zhang Bufan to cause such a big commotion by himself. The spirit of the celestial pole list nodded slightly and said, if there are really several descendants of the celestial emperors, we can't underestimate them. The handsome young man said, anyway, it's not clear now, so we can't say for sure. We've made up our minds to go, so we can only play it by ear. At this point, he laughed to himself and said proudly, in any case, the two of you don't have to worry. With me protecting you, you'll definitely be able to obtain the true inheritance of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect and obtain the shocking secret of the Great Evolution World Mountain. Qin Nan and the handsome young man ignored him and opened the map to find the location of the ascending balcony. Soon, the three of them moved and flew toward the east. It was unknown whether the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor did it intentionally or not, but they were not very far from the ascending balcony. After about an hour, the ascending balcony appeared in their sight. Under the starlight that filled the sky, a faint red stone platform that was over 1,000,000 feet wide floated 1,000 feet above the ground. It was emitting a desolate aura. Qin Nan and the others glanced down from the sky and saw enormous statues standing on the platform. There were humans, beasts, deities, and demons. They seemed to have existed for a long time, as they were covered in mottled marks. However, that was not the case. However, there was something blocking their divine charm, which made them feel as if they were alive and could be revived at any time. In the middle, there were countless patterns that intertwined to form a mysterious pattern. There were more than 100 cultivators standing on it. Dong Yang, young Master Zhenli, and the others that Qin Nan had met had arrived before him. At this moment, Dong Yang was kneeling on the ground with a pale face. In front of him was a long-haired young man, who was pointing at him with a furious face. Of course, he was cursing and scolding. This person was the descendant of an immortal emperor, Zhang Bufan. Tisk, Dongyang is such a coward. No matter what, you're still a descendant of an elder's bloodline, yet you actually have no dignity. The handsome young man shook his head with pity and disdain. Qin Nan and the other two glanced at the other cultivators. There were men and women among the cultivators, and they were all chatting. The auras emanating from their bodies were incomparably mysterious, making it impossible for anyone to see through them. Moreover, Qin Nan and the other two could clearly feel that these cultivators were divided into three groups. One of the groups was made up of young Master Zhenli and the others. There were even more people in this group than before. The other circle also had 30 to 50 people. The last circle only had a few dozen people. She's here too? Qin Nan quickly spotted a familiar figure. It was the saintess of the space-time temple, Lu Ningxuang. It's really a grand event. Those people all came from the top forces of the various realms. Their backgrounds are even more profound than young Master Zhenli and the others. The young man carrying a sword is called Zhao Wui, a celestial venerate at the Yingtian realm. The woman beside him is called Lu Ningxuang. The woman beside him is called Shui Mei'er, also a celestial venerate at the Yingtian realm. The handsome young man pointed out the backgrounds of these people. He seemed to know all of the geniuses very well. There are many experts. The spirit of the celestial pole list's eyes lit up. He was also at the Ingtian realm, and there were a few dozen people who were at the same level as him. Qin Nan's battle blood was also slightly agitated. He had to admit that the various realms were indeed different. Just this grand event on the Dian World Mountain was already filled with experts. My 3 friends, since you're already here, why don't you show yourselves? Suddenly, Zhang Bufan stopped reprimanding Dong Yang. Instead, he turned his head to look at Qin Nan and the other 2. His voice was loud and clear, reverberating throughout the area. Everyone's gazes immediately turned to look at him. "I'll put a restriction in your bodies," the handsome young man said telepathically. "Just in case we can't contact each other when the inheritance opens." Saying this, he patted the backs of Qin Nan and the spirit of the heavens terminus leaderboard. A talisman shaped like a magatama appeared in their divine sense. The 3 of them no longer hid themselves. They openly revealed themselves and flew toward the crowd under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Dong Yang, young Master Zhenli, Yen Danqing, and the others immediately looked at them angrily. The other geniuses were curious, playful, and disdainful. Lu Ningxuan glanced at Qin Nan and nodded slightly without saying anything. "Are you the Heaven Highness who has reached the path of perfection?" At that moment, a young man in golden armor stepped forward. He stared at the handsome young man and said, "I believe you're not a nobody. Where are you from?" The gazes of the other geniuses when they looked at the handsome young man were filled with curiosity and a trace of seriousness. Every Heaven Highness who had reached the path of perfection was extraordinarily terrifying. The handsome young man glanced at him and asked in return, "Who are you?" The young man in golden armor smiled faintly. He said with a hint of pride, "I'm Li Hua." "Li Hua? Are you a descendant of the 7th Celestial Emperor of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect, Emperor Ming?" The handsome young man asked curiously. Li Hua was surprised. He said, "You're indeed not simple. You actually know my ancestor's surname." One had to know that every immortal emperor was referred to by their Taoist name. Their specific surnames were rarely revealed. Moreover, Emperor Ming had died many years ago. The Li family had completely declined in the Long River. Not many people knew about it. TSK, the descendants of 2 celestial emperors are gathered here. I think there should be other descendants of celestial emperors, right? The handsome young man glanced at the crowd. "Fellow cultivator, you're wise. There is indeed one more person, and that is me. I'm the descendant of Emperor Qing, Tang Shuwen." A gentle voice was heard. A handsome young man in a blue robe with a face as white as jade walked out from the crowd, giving off a warm feeling. He was refined and courteous. Chapter 25:16. Qin Nan and Li Bufan were astounded. They had never heard the young man give such a compliment to a person since they met. "May I know your name?" Tang Shuwen brought his fists together. "Sigh, is my name really that important? Forget it, it doesn't matter if I tell you. My surname is Lin, and my courtesy name is Xiaotian." The young man let out a sigh. "So it's Cultivator Lin, nice to meet you," Tang Shuwen said with a smile. "I can see that Cultivator Lin is a straightforward person. If that's the case, let's not waste any more time. Let's find the true succession of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect together. What do you think?" Saying this, Tang Shuwen waved his hand. A sacred badge of Great Evolution appeared in front of him and emitted a brilliant glow. Li Hua stepped forward and took out a sacred badge of Great Evolution too. Zhang Bufan, who was not far away, coldly snorted when he saw this. His expression was a little cold. "Heavens, it's your turn." The young man turned around and said. The spirit of the celestial pole list did not waste any time. It stepped forward and summoned the sacred badge of Great Evolution from its body. Tang Shuwen, Li Hua, and Zhang Bufan were startled. they subconsciously took a closer look at the spirit of the celestial pole list. They initially thought the sacred badge of great evolution would be taken by this Lin Xiaotian, but it turned out to be someone else. This guy isn't as simple as we thought. The three murmured. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Meanwhile, a mysterious connection was established between the three sacred badges of great evolution. They began to vibrate at the same time and unleashed golden words into the sky. All the cultivators immediately looked over at the same time. When a total of 9,999 words were gathered together, a deafening explosion suddenly sounded in the sky ahead. The countless dazzling stars hanging in the sky all dropped down a beam of starlight. In the end, they gathered together and turned into a huge ball of pure light. Then, they suddenly shattered. This shattering was like breaking an ancient seal, an incomparably huge barrier. It didn't scatter any light, but instead, a crack that was several thousand feet tall and several hundred feet wide appeared. Through the crack, everyone could see the flickering light inside. Immortal chi swept out, and all kinds of auspicious phenomena were born. They could also see a corner of a magnificent and ancient world. This was the so-called Great Evolution Sacred Hall. It was not a simple palace, but the former site of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect, a world of its own. The true inheritance of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect. Many people were excited. Although over 100 people had obtained the true inheritance of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect in the past few million years, it was basically done by those who were fated to do so in secret. Others did not have the opportunity to participate. Even though they would definitely not be able to obtain the core inheritance of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect, there were still various other unique opportunities. If they were able to obtain one or two of them, it would definitely allow them to make a huge breakthrough. However, right at that moment, a change suddenly occurred. From the broken corner, a monstrous light suddenly rushed out and flew into the sky. Then, it turned into over 1,000 pillars of light and directly entered the ground, disappearing without a trace. Following it, a hoarse voice echoed between the heavens and earth. The true inheritance of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect is now open. Every cultivator can enter to seek the fortune. The cultivators were startled. Suddenly, someone blurted out, "My junior brother heard the voice, but he's only in the first layer." A few others blurted out. Their junior brothers had transmitted their thoughts to them. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list also heard the conversation between Ji Xian and Heaven Highness Long Ru. They also happened to see a light pillar descending from the sky. At this moment, everyone came to their senses. The true inheritance of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect was different from the past. It was open to all cultivators who had entered the Xuanji Pagoda. Li Hua, what do you mean? Didn't you say that only we can enter together? Why is it open to all cultivators now? A genius from a top-tier faction asked with an unpleasant expression. You're going back on your words. The rest of the cultivators reacted angrily. They had put in a lot of effort to help Li Hua and Tang Shuwen obtain the Great Evolution Sacred Badge, but this was the outcome? Even young Master Zhen Li and the others were displeased. Although they had failed in the end, they had still contributed and lost an important trump card. Fellow cultivators, we don't know why this is happening either, Tang Shuwen said calmly. Since it has happened, there's no way to change it. If that's the case, why don't we enter the Xuanji Pagoda as soon as possible? Let's go and seek the fortune. Saying this, Tang Shuwen, Zhang Bufan, and Li Hua took the lead and flew toward the crack. What are they trying to do? Qin Nan and the others were confused. Tang Shuwen must be lying if he said they didn't know. However, why did they gather all the cultivators on the Xuanji Pagoda? Was it to create a big scene? That was obviously impossible. A scene with more than 100 geniuses was enough for them to become a supreme holy master. They must have some other purpose. Let's not worry about that for now. Let's go inside first. The handsome young man transmitted his voice. Qin Nan and Zhang Bufan nodded and flew forward. When the other cultivators saw this, they also turned into rays of light and entered the crack. No matter how displeased they were, what was done could not be undone. They could only seize this opportunity. After a few breaths, the huge balcony was empty. The moment Qin Nan entered the crack, he immediately felt a majestic force enveloping him. It was similar to a teleportation formation, so Qin Nan did not resist and went with the flow. After some time, Qin Nan felt his body relax and he landed on the ground. Qin Nan looked up and saw that the starlight in the sky was no longer there. Instead, it was replaced by an azure color. All kinds of divine visions were evolving in the sky, making people feel as if they had entered a blessed land. Qin Nan was not in a hurry to search. Instead, he activated the restriction left by the handsome young man. Chapter 25:17. I don't have to worry about them with their cultivation, Qin Nan murmured. He picked a random direction and flew in it. The mountains, rivers, and earth here all contain a trace of a very mysterious aura. It makes one feel as if they really exist, but at the same time, they don't seem like they really exist. Qin Nan observed his surroundings. He did not dare to be careless. He withdrew his aura and secretly executed the great heavenly art. It felt like Qin Nan had returned to the great heavenly art in the great heavenly art. He would stumble into a rare resource every now and then. He didn't hesitate at all and directly grabbed it. A while later, Qin Nan suddenly sensed something. Qin Nan immediately executed the great heavenly art and teleported to a different place. A long spear covered in blood appeared where he was standing. It was emitting a tremendous aura as it stabbed into the rift. Whoosh! Immediately after, 3 humanoid figures with blurry faces rushed out from the void. They were all emitting blood-red light and making rustling sounds. Although their eyes couldn't be seen, one could sense that they were emitting a terrifying aura. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Roar! The 3 figures let out a beast-like roar that echoed in all directions. Following this, they dashed toward Qin Nan and hurled the blood-stained hairs in their hands at him. Origin Force. Qin Nan made his move. He executed the great heavenly art and threw a punch forward. Bang! A loud sound was heard as the force of the collision spread out. Qin Nan was knocked back 5 steps before he could stabilize his body. His arm was numb. What kind of monster is that? Such a terrifying power! Qin Nan was astounded. The 3 figures charged at him again. Qin Nan did not hold back any longer. He executed all the arts of Tao, seeking in his body to knock them back. Qin Nan went forward like a godly dragon emerging from the ocean. He executed a brilliant saber glow and killed one of the figures. Qin Nan was about to make his move again when he suddenly felt a great chill running down his spine. He quickly shifted his position. 2 figures appeared behind him and attacked him. If he had not reacted in time, he would have suffered some minor injuries. 2 more? Qin Nan frowned. He dodged the attacks at a shocking speed and threw a punch forward, shattering one of the figures into pieces. A strange sight took place. 2 more figures appeared from the rift behind him and charged at him. There are more of them? Qin Nan was given a great fright. He turned around and flew into the distance without any hesitation. With his current combat strength, he could completely suppress even 10 human figures. However, if there were 15 or 20 of them, there was nothing he could do. The 5 figures had no intention of letting him go. They chased after him. Then, a terrifying sight took place. After 30 breaths, Qin Nan suddenly sensed another figure descending from the rift. There's another one every once in a while? Qin Nan's heart sank. As he had expected, another figure descended from the rift after 50 breaths. The red glow they were emitting grew once again, like a waning sun. I can't let this go on. Qin Nan felt a great chill running down his spine. If he allowed it to continue, How was he going to deal with 100 of them? If I can't kill them, and I can't just ignore them, I can only suppress them. Qin Nan immediately came up with an idea. He turned around and threw a punch forward, knocking the 7 figures a step back. Great Evolution Sacred Mountain, suppress them. Qin Nan summoned an illusionary mountain with the origin force in his body and crushed down on the figures. The 7 figures seemed to have sensed something and let out an even sharper roar. Following this, the entire mountain seemed to have encountered an invisible barrier. When it was only a zhang away from their heads, it was unable to press down any further. The 7 figures charged at Qin Nan again. They were perfectly unaffected apart from being slightly slower. Qin Nan was startled. The will of the Great Evolution Sacred Mountain was ineffective against them? Qin Nan made his move again. He summoned the will of Tao Seeking with different arts of Tao Seeking to crush the figures like a huge mountain. This time, the figures did not roar. They swung their spears and shattered the mountain into pieces. Qin Nan's heart sank. The will of the Great Evolution Sacred Mountain that he had comprehended was the most suitable way to suppress the figures. Any other method would not be effective. What should I do now? If this continues, oh right. How did I forget about it? Qin Nan suddenly collected his thoughts. He shoved his hand forward, firing several ancient characters with glowing glows. The 7 figures immediately let out a piercing roar as if they had stumbled into their nemesis. They stabbed forward with their spears, but they were extremely weak as they no longer possessed the same strength. It's working! Qin Nan's eyes flickered. He unleashed the will of the Great Evolution Sacred Mountain again. However, a powerful, immortal character floated at the top of the mountain. Bang! The 7 humanoid figures were immediately suppressed. However, Qin Nan soon noticed that even though the 7 figures were suppressed by the immortal character, they were not completely subdued. They were still fighting back. Withdraw! Qin Nan immediately flew forward. Following this, Qin Nan encountered the most troublesome enemy he had ever encountered. Around 50 breaths later, the 7 figures would break free from the suppression of the immortal character and chase after him again. They seemed to have a unique tracking method. They were able to lock onto Qin Nan no matter how far away they were from Qin Nan. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. His heart skipped a beat. The only thing that Qin Nan was relieved about was that it would take 70 breaths for the figures to appear again after being suppressed by the immortal character. As such, Qin Nan had to stop to prevent their numbers from increasing too quickly. He would wait until the figures were a certain distance away from him before suppressing them with the immortal character. It's not going to work at this rate, Qin Nan frowned. He had tried a lot of methods during the chase, but none of them worked. Chapter 25:18. Qin Nan hesitated for less than a second before he unleashed the immortal character and the other ancient characters to protect himself as he moved forward. Even if the black mist was extremely dangerous, he still had to give it a try. After all, it was better than being chased to death by a bunch of strange figures. As soon as he stepped into the black mist, his divine sense, eye technique, etc. were suppressed once again. His vision was only able to see within 3 zhang of him. In addition to that, the ancient characters protecting him were glowing brightly, especially the immortal character, which was glowing brilliantly. He could faintly hear the sound of an immortal being coming from it, which kept the black mist at bay, preventing it from invading his body. Qin Nan tried to unleash a wisp of saber aura into the black mist, but a strange scene took place. The saber aura dissipated on its own before it reached half a zhang away, as if it had been devoured by some terrifying beast. Luckily, I can still block it. Qin Nan was relieved. The eerie black mist was too terrifying. Even with his cultivation, he would not be able to withstand it for more than 30 seconds. I wonder what's inside the black mist. Qin Nan was even more cautious as he continued to move forward. The surroundings were quiet. Apart from the sound of Qin Nan's footsteps, there was nothing else. Qin Nan walked forward for an hour, but apart from the weeds on the ground, he still did not see anything. Even the dark red ground under his feet was flat without any undulations or potholes. Suddenly, Qin Nan saw a hand bone emitting a faint glow to resist the corrosion of the black mist. Qin Nan let out a relieved sigh in his heart. It would be a little scary if there was nothing there. This hand bone is not simple. It still has a shocking remnant martial intent. The owner of this hand bone was most likely an authority when he was alive, surpassing the level of a supreme highness. Qin Nan bent down to observe and exclaimed. As for how strong the owner of the hand bone was, Qin Nan had no idea, as he was not familiar with the specific martial arts system of the heavens and realms. As the saying went, the ignorant were fearless. Qin Nan was not frightened because he did not understand. Qin Nan did not take the hand bone. The bone had lost all its power, and the remnant martial intent was meaningless to him. He continued forward. Almost every hour or so, he would see some broken limbs and bones. Among them, there was a leg bone that was the most astonishing. The martial will it exuded forcibly pushed the black fog to a radius of 2 zhang. Time passed by, and a day passed very quickly. The black mist seemed endless. Qin Nan was still moving forward. The black mist is starting to become stronger, Qin Nan murmured to himself. He had to use more energy to activate the ancient characters to resist the black mist. The black fog here has cut off everything. I can't replenish the energy in my body at all. If I don't find anything, I can only choose to retreat. Qin Nan made up his mind. He could still hold on for 6 hours. As if there was heaven's will in the unseen world, Qin Nan saw a hazy light in less than half an incense stick's time. Qin Nan's spirit was slightly shaken, and he quickened his pace. This is... Qin Nan soon saw that on the ground in front of him, there was an ancient pagoda that was tens of thousands of zhang tall, had 3 floors, and occupied an area of 10,000 zhang. The body of the pagoda seemed to be made of some kind of supreme-grade white jade. It was pure and flawless, emitting circles of white halo. In the dense black mist, it forcibly opened up an area of 10,000 zhang. It was not affected in the slightest, like a peerless pure land. Qin Nan was shocked. What kind of magic treasure was this? It actually possessed such terrifying divine power? If I can take this treasure... Qin Nan's eyes revealed a hint of passion. Young man, this isn't a magic treasure. Don't even think about it. At that instant, a hoarse voice could be heard coming from the pagoda, as an old man wearing a gray robe with a red cloud embroidered on the chest walked out from the pagoda. The old man had white hair and a face full of wrinkles. His eyes were hollow, giving him a strange feeling. Qin Nan was startled, but he soon reacted and brought his fists together. May I ask who this senior is? The old man must be an extraordinary existence to be able to walk out from the terrifying pagoda. The old man forced a smile on his face and said, Young man, you're very bold. The mist surrounding this place is called the absolute poison miasma. Even if an emperor-rank existence were to come, they would still have to think twice. However, I didn't expect you to have mastered the immortal character. Ever since the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect was annihilated, there have been hundreds of successors, but only 2 of them have mastered the word celestial. If it weren't for the immortal character, you would be dead by now. Qin Nan's back was covered in cold sweat. He did not expect the absolute poison miasma to be so terrifying. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Ming Daozi, the Pavilion Master of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect's mystical pavilion. 2 tiny golden flames appeared in Ming Daozi's hollow eyes. He seemed to be observing Qin Nan as he said, This white pagoda is the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect's mystical pavilion. The mystical pavilion of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect is responsible for alchemy. Qin Nan did not feel anything after hearing this. However, if the people of other worlds were here, they would be overjoyed. One had to know that the myriad worlds and the great upper worlds were different. The Tao of alchemy flourished in the myriad worlds, and the system was huge. There were many immortal pills, all of which possessed heaven-defying effects. Chapter 25:19. Qin Nan's eyes glittered. He immediately asked, "Senior, what kind of test is it? How do I meet the requirements?" Even though he wasn't interested in alchemy or pill recipes, he didn't mind accepting it if it wasn't too difficult. Besides, Ming Daozi didn't seem to have any ill intentions. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to resist him. It had been 1,000,000 years since the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect was destroyed, yet Ming Daozi was still alive with a special method. It was obvious how strong he was in the past. Wait a moment. Ming Daozi turned around and entered the pagoda. After a few moments, he came out with a stone the size of a palm. Ming Daozi pushed the stone forward. It fell to the ground and began to grow until it was as tall as 2 people. In addition to that, the stone itself turned from black to gold, emitting a faint glow. It was extraordinary. This is a treasure of the Graceful Spirit Pavilion. It's called the Connate Martial Path Stone. Back then, our Great Evolution Heavenly Sect saved a powerhouse with an ancient innate martial body by chance. After that person passed away, he left his body to us. We used his body to create this stone. Ming Daozi said slowly, "This stone has many incredible abilities. One of them is that it can be used to test a cultivator's martial talent." Ming Daozi smiled and said, "The Connate Martial Path Stone is completely different from other treasures used to test martial talent. This stone's test is more accurate. It has a total of 99 rare phenomena, which represent martial talent. 99 levels." Qin Nan was startled as he said, "So this trial is to test my martial talent?" "That's right." "Yes," Ming Daozi nodded slightly and said, "Since ancient times, many factions have believed that alchemy requires pill talent, which is to say, talent in alchemy. However, the Graceful Spirit Pavilion doesn't think so. We've always believed that martial talent is more important. Martial talent is more important. Every pill is like a martial arts seed. Those with great martial arts talent can make this seed undergo more changes and grow to a higher level. They are born to be alchemists. Now that you're participating in the test, if you can," Ming Daozi thought for a moment and said, "It's enough to trigger the phenomenon on the 33rd level. Originally, according to the rules they had set, they would need to trigger at least the 55th floor's phenomenon before they could reach the standard. However, Underworld Daozi had a good impression of Qin Nan. Furthermore, he wouldn't be around for much longer, so it was very likely that Qin Nan was the best person he had ever met. The latter was a person who had mastered the character Xian, so he made an exception and lowered his requirements, just in case. "Alright, Senior, I'll take the test." Qin Nan immediately nodded in agreement. If it were any other test, he might hesitate for a moment or two. However, if it was a test of martial talent, then there was no problem for him. This was because there was no danger in testing one's martial talent. Furthermore, he had confidence in his own martial talent. Heart. Reaching the 33rd floor shouldn't be a problem, Qin Nan thought to himself. At the same time, he was a little curious. How high could his martial arts talent reach? Sit down cross-legged and place your palm on the Connate Martial Arts Stone. Qin Nan followed Ming Daozi's instructions. The moment he placed his hand on the Connate Martial Arts Stone, he instantly felt a mysterious power flowing through his body. His mind gradually calmed down and entered an ethereal state. Ming Daozi saw this and nodded slightly. To be able to enter the state so quickly, the 33rd floor should not be a problem. Sigh, I didn't expect that the dignified spiritual beauty pavilion would have to lower the standard to find someone to bear the karma. Suddenly, a hoarse voice sounded. A pitch-black elder exuding an aura of death walked out of the tower. He's here. Behind the elder were several other elders. Without exception, they were all covered in an aura of death. Their skin was pitch black, and they looked like both humans and ghosts. This little kid is average. He's not as good as the previous two people who had the character Sien. The moment they placed their palms on the connate martial arts stone, they triggered the phenomenon on the 10th floor. In the end, they even reached the 70th floor. Indeed, from the looks of it, they can only trigger the phenomenon on the 50th or 60th floor at most. I didn't expect that someone with such martial talent would be able to obtain the character Sien. Has the standard of the Great Evolution heavenly sect started to lower? Another two elders spoke. They were not looking down on Qin Nan, but they were a little sad and helpless. Ming Daozi was a little displeased. It's already at this stage. What's the point of saying this? Moreover, who knows if this kid can reach the 70th floor and give us a surprise? Just because he didn't trigger the phenomenon at the beginning doesn't mean that his martial talent isn't strong. The few old men laughed involuntarily and said, "Pavilion Master, do you believe what you're saying?" "Pavilion Master, we're just lamenting. We don't feel that there's anything wrong." "Yes, Pavilion Master. We know very well what the situation is now." Ming Daozi sighed. Indeed, he did not believe it in his heart. It's just a pity. Back then, I chose to abandon my physical body and turned into an existence that was neither human nor ghost. I've waited here for millions of years, but I still haven't met anyone who can trigger the phenomenon above the 80th floor. Despair. Old Chi, I said back then that it's almost impossible to trigger the phenomenon above the 80th floor, unless you have a connate martial body. However, the connate martial body is not tolerated by all the Daos in the world. It's already amazing if one can appear in millions of years. The elder shook his head. His tone was very calm, as if he already knew the result. Ming Daozi was also a little helpless and unwilling. He said, "Yes, if someone with a connate martial body appears, they can definitely refine the legendary 10 transformations immortal pill. The 10 transformations immortal pill is against the heavens, against the Tao, and against all living beings." At this point, he imagined the shocking scene of the 10 transformations immortal pill being born. He could not help but become excited. The other elders fell silent as if they were also imagining that scene. These people were different from ordinary cultivators. They were born for alchemy and they lived for alchemy. They were willing to suffer for millions of years for alchemy. Unfortunately, they would not be able to see it. Chapter 25-20. Underworld Daozi and the old men immediately glanced at Qin Nan. It was as if the Xiantian martial stone had been awakened from its slumber. Countless mystical runes covered its surface, and the glow it emitted became brighter all of a sudden, resulting in an extraordinary sight. In addition to that, an invisible force was unleashed from the connate martial arts stone and spread in all directions. Buzz! The connate martial arts stone shuddered as flames burst out from its surface and burned fiercely. If one were to take a closer look, they would discover a blue lotus the size of a palm deep inside the flames swaying vigorously. Planting a blue lotus in the flames. That was not the end of it. More rare phenomena appeared one after another like bamboo shoots after a rain. There was a godly monkey born from a rock, a godly emperor entering the 9 heavens, a dance of the 9 dragons and 9 phoenixes, etc. A great aura swept the place. Even though the rare phenomena were only illusionary, the significance they represented was quite shocking. That's 30 rare phenomena. At this rate, it shouldn't be a problem for him to achieve 50 rare phenomena. I'm just not sure if he can achieve 60 rare phenomena. Underworld Daozi and the old men nodded slightly. They had used the Khanate martial arts stone to test the martial arts talent of many people, thus they had some experience. They were able to make a rough judgment based on the speed at the beginning. Time gradually passed. 100 breaths later, 55 rare phenomena were emitted from the Khanate martial arts stone. They stood in the air and stacked on top of one another like magnificent mountains. However, the rate at which the rare phenomena were being triggered had slowed down. It was no longer the same as before, where several rare phenomena would appear at once. As I thought. The old men let out sighs. Judging from the current situation, Qin Nan could only reach the 60th floor. There was no way he could go any higher. Underworld Daozi's expression remained the same. He had only expected Qin Nan to reach the 33rd layer, but Qin Nan had already reached the 60th layer. It was already far beyond his expectations. However, he was still a little disappointed deep in his heart. Could it be that I still haven't given up? Underworld Daozi mocked himself in his heart. However, at that instant, an unexpected change took place. The glow emitted by the Khanate martial arts stone suddenly turned blood-red. Its cries echoed in the surroundings like the cries of phoenixes. Underworld Daozi and the old men were startled. Following it, they witnessed an astonishing sight. The rare phenomena that had come to a halt began to rise once again, as if they were stimulated by a great force. 65, 75, 75, 79. At that instant, it was as if the rare phenomena had come alive, unleashing a shocking aura. The rare phenomenon of the 80th layer. This. Underworld Daozi and the other elders were all shocked. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. A rare phenomenon on the 80th layer? Did he have a Khanate martial Dao body? Did I see it? This isn't a phenomenon, right? An old man's voice trembled. That's innate martial arts body. He has an innate martial arts body. Man, I've been waiting for so long. The other old men collected their thoughts too. They were extremely excited. The suffering of the past million years is nothing. This group of alchemists, who were once famous, were as happy as children at this very moment. Qin Nan was completely unaware of it. Qin Nan was still in a blank state. However, he could faintly feel a strange voice in his heart saying something he had never heard before. It was like a whisper at first, but it gradually became louder like thunder, as if it was telling him something important. Meanwhile, Underworld Daozi and the others calmed down slightly, but they were still extremely excited. The Khanate martial arts body has shown up. What we should do next is to teach him the magical pill scripture of 10 revolutions. That's right. He has the Khanate martial arts body. He can surely refine the magical pill of 10 revolutions. We have to give him everything that's left of the magical pill pavilion. Sai, don't forget, when we made this choice, we were very confident. We set up a rule that we could only give him everything of the magical pill pavilion if he reached the 99th floor. Damn it, why did we think so much back then? Now we can only give him 80% at most. We can't give him the great mystery Daluo Palace. Without it, it will be too difficult for him to refine the magical pill of 10 revolutions. Underworld Daozi and the others spoke one after another. The joy they had just felt was replaced by depression. However, right at that moment, the abnormal sign that seemed to have come to a standstill suddenly began to rise rapidly. 85, 90, 95. Underworld Daozi and the other old men were shocked. Does this mean that this kid can? Underworld Daozi and the other old men's breathing began to quicken. Sure enough, in the next moment, the phenomenon reached the 99th level. The radiance it emitted illuminated the darkness in the sky like a blazing divine fire. Underworld Daozi and the other old men shuddered and were overjoyed. The phenomenon of the 99th floor. the pinnacle of martial arts talent. They could give everything they had to Qin Nan. Qin Nan would surely be able to refine the first magical pill of 10 revolutions in all the worlds. However, in the next moment. Chapter 25-21. Underworld Daozi and the others widened their eyes. Then, they saw an unforgettable scene. The entire Khanate martial arts stone actually shattered, turning into thousands of specks of light that condensed into a tall, blurry figure. It was as if the figure was the only existence between the heavens and earth. Everything else in the world was eclipsed by it. The figure seemed to still be alive. He lowered his head slightly and glanced at Qin Nan, who was sitting with his legs crossed. He uttered with an ancient yet deafening voice, "It's real." The figure did not say anything further after saying the words. He tapped on Qin Nan's forehead with his finger. At that instant, the rare phenomena on the 99th floor emitted a tremendous glow. 100 rays. 105 rays. 110 rays. Rare phenomena that the underworld Daozi and the others had never seen before took place continuously, as if they were trying to illuminate the darkness. The strange phenomenon lasted for 50 breaths' time before it finally came to a stop. The rare phenomena and the huge figure were gone. The Khanate martial stone stood silently on the ground, emitting a faint golden glow. There was complete silence in all directions, not a single sound could be heard. An old man collected his thoughts after some time. He swallowed his saliva and said in a trembling voice, "Everyone, did I see it wrong? Was it an illusion?" What had just happened had completely overturned their understanding. The Khanate martial stone could only detect 99 floors at most. Why was there almost 200 floors this time? Who was the huge figure? Was it the unfortunate Khanate martial flesh that had fallen? "It's not an illusion, it's not an illusion." Ming Daozi reacted and suppressed the boundless joy in his heart. He said resolutely, "It must be that this kid's martial talent has already exceeded the range that the Xiantian martial Dao stone can measure. That's why it appeared. That's why it happened. Or maybe it's because he has the Khanate martial flesh that the Khanate martial stone was triggered." Time gradually passed. Half an hour later, Qin Nan slowly opened his eyes. He was extremely energetic, as if he had not gone through the trial, but had slept for a few days to get rid of his fatigue. However, Qin Nan's heart was filled with doubts. The voice he heard, who was it? What did she want to tell him? An hour later, what exactly was the mysterious power that entered his body? Why couldn't he sense it now? However, he didn't have much time to think. When he opened his eyes, he immediately saw Underworld Daozi's face right in front of him, giving him quite a fright. "Senior, congratulations!" Ming Daozi grinned and said, "Your talent in the martial Dao is not bad. You've triggered a total of 70 levels and passed the test." In that 1 hour, Ming Daozi and the other old men had recovered from their shock and joy. They had decided not to tell Qin Nan the truth of this test, to prevent Qin Nan from becoming too arrogant. They didn't intend to tell Qin Nan that the Khanate martial Dao aptitude was required to refine the 10 revolutions immortal pill. The 70th level? Qin Nan's heart trembled. The myriad worlds were indeed not simple. The fact that the Khanate martial Dao stone could trigger a phenomenon on the 99th level meant that someone could do it. Qin Nan had thought that his talent in the martial Dao was quite good. However, it seemed that there was always someone better than him. I've said before that if you can pass the test, you can take 3 of the alchemy techniques and recipes of the spiritual beauty pavilion and half of the elixirs. Now that you've far exceeded the standard, you can take all the alchemy techniques, recipes, and elixirs. Ming Daozi said. His face was full of smiles. I can take all of them? Qin Nan was delighted. Not only that, but we'll also give you a great opportunity. That is the mysterious Daluo Palace. You can use it as you wish, Ming Daozi said solemnly. The mysterious Daluo Palace? Qin Nan glanced at the mysterious small white tower. Of course not. This tower is the Spiritual Beauty Pavilion, an important location of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect. We can't give it to you. Ming Daozi shook his head and smiled. However, the mysterious Daluo Palace is not inferior to the Spiritual Beauty Pavilion. They are both treasures of the same level. However, you'll have to wait for 10 years. Once the 10 years are up, the palace will be able to break through the void and find you. The corner of Qin Nan's mouth twitched. To be able to obtain a treasure comparable to the Spiritual Beauty Pavilion was indeed a good thing. However, 10 years later? He wouldn't be here in a few months and wouldn't have the chance to use the mysterious Daluo Palace. You're not happy, kid? Millions of years ago, the mysterious Daluo Palace was one of the treasures of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect. Even the vice sect leader wasn't qualified to use it. Ming Daozi rolled his eyes. Qin Nan shook his head and probed, "Senior, don't you have any other requests?" He had only passed the test, but Ming Daozi had given him so many benefits. No matter how he looked at it, it was a little strange. "I won't hide it from you. It won't be long before I disappear. It's the same for the elders in the pavilion." Ming Daozi smiled faintly. "Now that you've appeared, we're entrusting everything to you so that you can make our Spiritual Beauty Pavilion's reputation famous again. My name will once again resound throughout the myriad worlds. Of course, that's not all. We also hope that you can refine the 10 Revolutions Immortal Pill." Qin Nan immediately asked, "10 Revolutions Immortal Pill? What's that?" Ming Daozi explained, "In the universe, all the immortal pills are divided into 9 revolutions. The first revolution is the weakest, while the 9th is the strongest. However, the Spiritual Beauty Pavilion has always believed that the legendary 10 Revolutions Immortal Pill exists in this world. It's a pity that the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect had a sudden calamity. We didn't have the chance to reappear the 10 Revolutions Immortal Pill in the world." Ming Daozi let out a long sigh. He didn't tell Qin Nan the whole truth. After all, the current Qin Nan was still too weak. There was still a long way to go before he could shoulder the karma of the Spiritual Beauty Pavilion. Therefore, there was no need to say it to avoid giving Qin Nan too much pressure. Chapter 25-22. Underworld. Daozi waved his hand, opening the door of the White Pagoda on its own. Qin Nan followed behind him and entered the pagoda. He immediately saw a few old men with squinted eyes. Besides, even though the old men did not have eyes, Qin Nan could feel their scorching gazes. Qin Nan could not help but shiver. These are the elders of the Exquisite Spirit Pavilion. Before the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect was destroyed, they were all famous 9 Revolution Pill alchemists across the heavens. Underworld. Daozi introduced. "Junior Lin Xiaoji greets seniors." Qin Nan immediately brought his fists together. "Hee, young master, there's no need to be so courteous with us." The old men were even more satisfied. It was rare to see Qin Nan not being arrogant despite his talent. Underworld. Daozi flicked his finger. The dimly lit pagoda immediately brightened up. The mysterious ancient paintings on the walls began to glow. The people and beasts inside the paintings seemed to have come alive. Underworld. Daozi straightened his face. He performed a strange hand seal and said in a loud voice, "In the name of the Pavilion Master of the Exquisite Spirit Pavilion, I present the succession of the Exquisite Spirit Pavilion." The old men straightened their faces too. They sat with their legs crossed and performed a hand seal. "Pill recipes." As soon as Underworld. Daozi finished his sentence, a mystical sound could be heard coming from all directions. All kinds of ancient papers, beast hides, jade scrolls, etc., floated in the air as if they had traveled across the rift and were emitting colorful glows. Qin Nan raised his head and was shocked. There were more than 10,000 ancient papers, beast hides and jade scrolls. They seemed to have recorded the great Tao, emitting a formidable aura that suppressed the heavens and earth. When the exquisite spirit pavilion was at its peak, there were more than 1,000,000 pill recipes. Now, these 10,000 pill recipes have been carefully selected and refined over the past few million years. Even though there aren't many of them, they still contain the knowledge of pill alchemy across the heavens and earth. Underworld Daozi's tone was calm, but it was filled with a shocking pride. 10,000 pill recipes were enough to contain the knowledge of pill alchemy across the heavens and earth. How shocking was that? Pill alchemy. Ming Daozi didn't wait for Qin Nan's reply and spoke again. Following this, several blinding rays descended from the sky. Among them were golden bones of beasts, rotten boulders, 9-colored jade badges, etc. There were over 1,000 kinds in total. My spiritual beauty pavilion's alchemy technique is called the Marvelous Alchemy Canon. I dare not call it unparalleled, but it is one of the top alchemy techniques in the universe. As for the remaining 1,000 pill techniques, they were all collected by my divine beauty pavilion back then and carefully studied by us. Read, get rid of the dregs, and keep the essence, tempering from 10,000 alchemy techniques to 1,000 alchemy technique. When Qin Nan heard Underworld Daozi's voice, his heart trembled. At first, he thought that this was just a good opportunity, but now he felt that this was definitely a peerless opportunity. Dan, come. Ming Daozi waved his hand. He could only see jars of immortal jade falling from the sky, each with a pill floating in them. There were over 300 pills in total, each different from the others. Some were fiery red like flames, while others were pitch black like demon statues. On top of it, the pills were covered in golden runes. The minimum number was only 1 rune, while the maximum number was 9. 9 runes. Qin Nan took a closer look and discovered a total of 3 pills with 9 golden runes on them. Furthermore, the auras emitted from them felt like a boundless ocean. Even with his current cultivation, it was difficult for him to peek through them. Immortal pills are split into 9 transformations. A 1-revolution immortal pill with 1 immortal rune is a 9-revolution immortal pill. The spiritual beauty pavilion has completely declined. They only have 3 9-revolution immortal pills left, and 10 8-revolution immortal pills. They're all yours. Ming Daozi let out a sigh. Senior, this is already a lot. Qin Nan comforted her. Although it was a little rare for the mystical pavilion of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect to offer only a few hundred pills, Qin Nan was not a greedy person. However, it was Qin Nan's fault for not being familiar with the pills in the heavens and earth. Otherwise, he would not have been able to remain calm. The 9-revolution immortal pills were extremely rare in the heavens and earth. Every one of them would attract the attention of many factions. Only experts close to the immortal Emperor realm were qualified to consume them. The 203 immortal pills were enough to attract the attention of immortal Emperor realm experts. Ming Daozi smiled and said, "Even though there aren't many pills left for you, we've carefully selected them for you. Every immortal pill here has a different effect. When the time comes for you to consume them, you must remember to focus fully on them. Besides, you're not familiar with the Tao of pills yet, so there's one thing you should pay attention to. You can't consume the immortal pills as you please. With your current cultivation, you can only consume a 3-revolution immortal pill at most. If you exceed the 3-revolution immortal pill, remember not to try it out of curiosity. Otherwise, you might not be able to break through to the supreme heavenly venerate realm for the rest of your life. Alright, you can take all of these things." Ming Daozi waved his sleeve, and an invisible force gathered all the pill formulas, pill techniques, and pills. They entered a light red ring that floated in front of Qin Nan. This ring is the symbol of the young pavilion master of the spiritual beauty pavilion. In addition to the things just now, there's also a wisp of will left by the 5 of us. When you're looking at the pill formulas and pill techniques, if you have any questions, you can wake it up. I'll answer them for you. Ming Daozi said. Young Pavilion Master, the hope of the Spiritual Beauty Pavilion rests on you. The other elders stood up and cupped their fists. Seniors, please rest assured. When the time comes, I'll do my best. Qin Nan returned the greeting. Even though he was not interested in alchemy, he would not waste such a great opportunity. I'm relieved to hear that, Ming Daozi said with a smile. The matter has been settled. You may leave now. Qin Nan was startled. He was going to let him go just like that? Now that the succession of the Grand Yen Heavenly Sect has been opened, and you've obtained the immortal character, you have the upper hand. Therefore, your first priority is to obtain the true succession of the Grand Yen Heavenly Sect. As for alchemy, there's no rush. Wait until you've become the successor of the Grand Yen Heavenly Sect. Then you can slowly cultivate. Chapter 25-23. An hour later, Qin Nan summoned the immortal character and tore through the black fog. When the time comes, I have to leave enough time to memorize all the pill formulas and alchemy technique. I also have to refine all these pills, or it will be a waste. There's not much time left, so I'll start now. Qin Nan immediately took out a 1 revolution immortal pill and swallowed it. In an instant, a formless energy was released from his body and instantly seeped into all the meridians in his body, causing some sort of transformation. From afar, his entire body was flickering like an immortal weapon. Qin Nan's eyes lit up. He hadn't expected a 1 revolution immortal pill to have such pill power. What kind of pill power would a 9 revolution immortal pill possess? Fortunately, I'm in the space-time light. Even if I consume a 3 revolution immortal pill, it won't affect me in any way, even if I can't break through to the Supreme Empyrean realm, Qin Nan thought to himself. If that wasn't the case, he would have wasted a lot of energy. Then, Qin Nan split his attention into 3 things. He hurried along, experienced the effects of the pill, and cultivated the space-time scripture. A few hours later, Qin Nan walked out of the black fog. Qin Nan glanced at his surroundings, then took out a 1 revolution immortal pill and threw it into his mouth. At the same time, he formed a few mysterious hand seals with both hands, causing a formless energy to shroud his body. During his last conversation with Ming Daozi and the others, Qin Nan learned that the humanoid figure that had chased after him was a restriction set up by the Great Evolution Sky Sect. It was called the Miasma Demon. It was densely packed in the void and couldn't be sensed by any means. If one accidentally encountered it, it didn't matter how strong one's cultivation or combat strength was. One would eventually be exhausted to death. There weren't many ways to deal with the Miasma Demon. One of them was to enter a mystic realm or a large hall in this place. Only then could the Miasma Demon retreat. The second method was the hand seals that Ming Daozi had imparted to Qin Nan. They could prevent the Miasma Demon from sensing Qin Nan's aura. Qin Nan took out the ancient map. After confirming the direction, he continued forward. In the end, after talking with Ming Daozi, Qin Nan found out that the small world they were in now was equivalent to the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect's site. It had the Sect Leaders Hall, Inheritance Hall, Skills Hall, Spiritual Beauty Pavilion, Merit Pavilion, and so on. There were also various big and small places for disciples to go. There were also some forbidden areas that not even the elders were allowed to enter. Of course, all of this could not be compared to the original location of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect. Instead, it was countless times smaller, and many things were missing. The Torch Dragon secret realm that Qin Nan was heading to was one of the 10 secret realms that the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect used to train their disciples. In this mystic realm, danger lurked everywhere and monsters were everywhere. At the core of the mystic realm, there was a torch dragon immortal tree. Rumor had it that the tree was formed from the blood of a torch dragon that had shaken the heavens and realms. After it was slain by an immortal emperor of the great evolution heavenly sect, the blood of the torch dragon was accidentally spilled on a tree called the immeasurable immortal tree. The torch dragon immortal tree would blossom and bear fruits once every 300 years. After consuming the fruits, not only would it bring great benefits to one's cultivation, there was also a chance for one to obtain the torch dragon's past mystical powers. The torch dragon was a peerless beast in the greater success stage, who could fight against an immortal emperor. It was obvious how powerful its mystical powers were. 3 days later, Qin Nan crossed a desert and saw the torch dragon's secret realm. The sky and ground had changed completely. The sky was blood-red while the ground was white. Countless beastly auras floated up and down. There was even a storm of beastly auras sweeping across the place. The roars of various beasts echoed throughout the place. Qin Nan took out a grade 1 immortal pill and swallowed it. Countless thunderous sounds immediately sounded in his body, and lightning flashed all over his body. This immortal pill actually contained the lightning power of some kind of immortal thunder. Not only did it not cause any harm to the physical body, it also had a tempering effect. Most importantly, it allowed the cultivator to sense the mysteries of this lightning power. Qin Nan condensed a thunder saber and flew into the mystic realm. Once he arrived at the torch dragon's secret realm, there was no chance for him to take any shortcut. He could only kill his way through. Time passed. 2 days later, Qin Nan had already gone deep into the mystic realm. He could acutely sense that there was a supreme existence in front of him that was immovable and intimidating. The demonic aura that existed in the world had also become denser. It even condensed into a mist and evolved various demonic Tao phenomena. I'm not far from the torch dragon immortal tree. Qin Nan thought to himself and sped up. A moment later, he stopped in his tracks because he acutely sensed that the demonic aura in front of him had begun to become chaotic, as if it had encountered some kind of impact. Someone is fighting? Qin Nan raised his brows. He immediately withdrew his aura and slowly moved forward. 100 breaths later, Qin Nan was the first to see a blood-red tree standing proudly at the peak of a magnificent mountain. Its branches and leaves pierced through the clouds like an ancient dragon staring at the heavens. Under the tree were 5 powerful auras colliding with one another, resulting in strong gusts of wind. Qin Nan was stunned when he took a closer look. One of them had white robes that fluttered in the wind. His skin was whiter than snow, and he held an ancient sword. He looked like a sword immortal as he slashed out countless shocking sword energies. He fought against the other 4 without any fear. She was none other than Luning Shuang. The other 4 cultivators are no ordinary cultivators. Qin Nan's eyes glittered. This was especially the case for a short-haired young man. He controlled an ancient snake-like chain. As he waved it, he sealed off the countless sword qis. From time to time, he would attack Luning Shuang from tricky angles. Luning Shuang had no choice but to use a large amount of sword qis to resist. The short-haired young man was the reason why Luning Shuang was in a disadvantageous position. Meanwhile, the short-haired young man took a step forward. The chain in his hand turned into a shadow looming over Luning Shuang. His lips curled upward into a smile. Luning Shuang, stop struggling. You've lost the right time, the right place, and the people around you. What kind of opponent are you? Hand over the torch dragon fruit. Luning Shuang's expression remained calm. She continued to attack as if she did not hear anything. Chapter 25-24. Who's there? The short-haired young man snapped, causing the chains in his hand to break into pieces, which transformed into thousands of dark rays that shattered the saber glow into pieces, before forming a magical formation that encapsulated the heavens and earth, looming over Qin Nan. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. The short-haired young man was able to nullify his attack and turn the tables around within an instant. The short-haired young man was indeed impressive. The short-haired young man's speed in particular was unbelievably quick. It greatly surpassed Qin Nan's speed. Qin Nan did not hold back against such a strong opponent. He executed the art of Tao seeking, including the heavenly art of assimilation. He combined 10 different Tao arts and fired them forward. Die! The short-haired young man's eyes flickered with a talisman. He could only see different talismans on the broken chains, which suddenly emitted a blinding glow. Each of the chains was emitting flames, lightning, ice, etc. They intertwined with one another to form a strong murderous aura. The array formation formed by the broken chains was just a pretense. This was the real killing move. Qin Nan's eyes widened. He immediately unleashed the origin force to summon an illusionary mountain floating above him to defend himself from the attacks coming from all directions. The will of the great evolution world mountain? The short-haired young man was astounded. He was about to make his move when he suddenly had a strange feeling. He blurted out, "Die!" In front of him, the broken chains were covered in godly talismans that emitted blinding glows. The art of space-time. Rewind time by a second. The short-haired young man was putting Qin Nan under great pressure. As such, Qin Nan did not hesitate to activate the sacred scripture of space and time when the two of them clashed. Qin Nan was long prepared for it. He was the first to make his move. He gathered the power of the arts of Tao seeking before the chains could unleash their full potential. He turned into a brilliant ray that broke through the chains and attacked the enemy's weak point. The short-haired young man. You also know space-time techniques? The short-haired young man's expression changed. He immediately formed a strange seal with both hands. Runes appeared all over his body, emitting a divine light. It was as if he had turned into a divine talisman, releasing an incredible power. Volume. Miss Lu, I'll hold him back. Quickly finish off the others. Qin Nan shouted. All right. Lu Ningxuang was only slightly surprised by his arrival for a split second, but she quickly reacted. Her figure leaped backwards, bringing with it a fragrant wind. The sword in her hand suddenly left her hand and flew towards the other three like a dragon. He rushed forward. Alone in this world, I will turn into a god-fiend. The short-haired young man immediately realized what they were up to. He immediately cast a forbidden art, summoning 5 magnificent figures behind him, as if 5 peerless experts had bestowed their will upon him. It gave him infinite power. The short-haired young man let out a roar. He no longer controlled the godly chain. He threw a punch and a kick at Qin Nan instead. The pure power he possessed after using the forbidden art had reached an unbelievable level. Everything he had was comparable to an immortal weapon. He did not need to use any moves to shatter the rules. Qin Nan's heart sank. He immediately used the will of the art of Tao seeking to draw the shape of the great evolution world mountain to resist the attack. Bang bang bang! An earth-shattering confrontation unfolded in midair. The torch dragon tree did not seem to have noticed anything as it continued to stand there quietly, unaffected. We can't hold on any longer. The faces of the other 3 cultivators turned pale. One of them even suffered a destructive sword intent. He barely managed to resist it with all kinds of moves. Blood was flowing out of his mouth. After all, there was still a significant difference between their strength and Lu Ningxuang's. If the battle continued, Lu Ningxuang was going to defeat them one by one. Damn it! The short-haired young man's expression darkened. He did not expect something like this to happen when he was so close to winning the battle. Besides, the young man in front of him was quite strong. Even though the short-haired young man was confident that he could defeat the young man, it was unlikely he would be able to defeat the young man in a short time. We have no choice but to retreat. The short-haired young man was unwilling to admit defeat, but he was a decisive person. Since the tables had turned, there was no need for him to continue the battle. Once Lu Ningxuang defeated the other 3 cultivators and teamed up with the young man, he would suffer serious injuries. The short-haired young man did not even consider persuading Qin Nan to leave or threatening him, as it was impossible for him to do so. However, at that instant Qin Nan, Lu Ningxuang, and the short-haired young man were startled, as they simultaneously sensed 15 powerful auras rushing toward them from the south. Someone is coming? Qin Nan and Lu Ningxuang were startled. The short-haired young man's heart moved, and he immediately dispelled the idea just now. It's you. It did not take long for the 15 figures to reach the vicinity of the Candle Dragon's celestial tree. When they saw one of the figures, they were shocked and could not believe their eyes. Qin Nan glanced at the figure from the corner of his eye, and his face darkened. If it had been someone else, there might have been a chance to turn things around. However, wasn't his luck too bad? The 15 figures were young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others. Lin Xiaoji, you made us look for you. Young Master Zhenli and the others sneered. Their killing intent soared. They had already suffered 2 losses at the hands of Lin Xiaoji. The conflict between the 2 parties could not be resolved. They were mortal enemies the moment they met. My friends, Lin Xiaoji is on Lu Ningxuang's side. Lu Ningxuang came to the vicinity of the Candle Dragon's celestial tree in advance, and plucked the Candle Dragon's celestial fruit. If you join forces with us to take down Lu Ningxuang, you can have all the loot. We will take 40%. What do you think? The short-haired young man's eyes lit up when he saw the situation. All right. Young Master Zhenli agreed without hesitation. Lin Xiaoji, let's see where you can run to today. Young Master Zhenli and the others turned into 15 divine rainbows and charged toward them. Chapter 25-25. In the blink of an eye, a majestic murderous aura filled every inch of the void. Among young Master Zhenli's group, 2 geniuses were instructed to take out an immortal pagoda and an ancient lamp, respectively. They released an earth-shattering divine power to suppress and seal the void to prevent Qin Nan from escaping. Qin Nan's expression changed as alarm bells rang in his head. What should he do now? Given his current combat strength, if he were to face the combined forces of young Master Zhenli and the other geniuses head-on, he would not be able to last for more than 100 breaths of time. In the end, he would not be able to escape death. Under the intense sense of danger, Qin Nan's mind worked extremely fast. In an instant, he came up with all sorts of ideas. However, these ideas could not change the outcome of the current situation. Wait, don't I still have many immortal elixirs with me? Suddenly, Qin Nan's eyes lit up. At the same time, Lu Ningxuang felt helpless. She could only take out a fruit from her storage bag. Countless dragon roars immediately resounded. Under such circumstances, the Candle Dragon fruit could not be guaranteed. She could only toss the Candle Dragon fruit out and let the 2 parties fight. Only then would she have a chance to escape. The Candle Dragon fruit? As expected, the short-haired young man, young Master Zhenli, and the others instinctively looked over and held their breaths. I don't want this fruit. You can fight for it with your own abilities, Lu Ningxuang said quickly as she prepared to toss the Candle Dragon fruit out. However, at that moment, Qin Nan did not hesitate. He took out a rank 6 immortal elixir from the ring and swallowed it. Previously, Ming Daozi had told him that with his current cultivation base, he could not consume immortal elixirs above the rank 3 immortal elixir. Otherwise, he would never be able to enter the supreme heavenly venerate realm. To Qin Nan, this was not a big deal. However, Qin Nan did not know much about immortal elixirs. He did not know how powerful the rank 9 immortal elixir was and what kind of side effects it would bring. Therefore, he compromised and chose the rank 6 immortal elixir. He chose the rank 6 immortal elixir. The instant the immortal pill entered his mouth, it turned into a warm current that flowed into his limbs and bones. Then, Qin Nan's pupils shrank as he felt an incomparably pure energy explode within his body. Boom! Boom! Qin Nan's aura skyrocketed all of a sudden, burning fiercely like an ancient godly flame. In addition to that, his body was covered in crimson runes. Each rune had an illusionary figure sitting with their legs crossed while uttering the nameless ancient scriptures. The expressions of the short-haired youth, Prince Zhenli, and the others changed as they turned their heads to look. You actually ate a rank 6 blood deity transformation immortal pill? The short-haired young man was very knowledgeable, so he immediately understood what was going on. His eyes revealed a trace of shock. Was this guy crazy? It should be known that the 6th Revolution Blood Spirit Immortal Elixir was an elixir used by a supreme heavenly venerate to break through to the next level. Although a heavenly venerate would absorb part of the elixir's power and enhance their cultivation base, most of the elixir's power would be accumulated in their body. It would form a thick layer of impurities. Even an immortal emperor would not be able to break through to the realm of the supreme heavenly venerate in their lifetime. Luning Shuang was stunned. Luning Shuang was in a daze. Was he doing all this for her? At that instant, Qin Nan felt like his body was on the verge of exploding, as a boundless force filled his limbs and bones, giving him the feeling that he could shatter everything in the heavens. I made the right bet. Qin Nan was overjoyed. At the same time, he was relieved. In his current condition, his body would not be able to withstand the energy if he ate a rank 9 immortal elixir. Qin Nan lifted his head and looked at Prince Zhenli and the others. He said, "Are you trying to kill me?" His voice had become hoarse and loud. He was like a god that had just awakened and was coldly looking down on all living beings. Whoosh! Qin Nan did not give them a chance to speak. He charged at Prince Zhenli and the others. The arts of Tao seeking in his body were activated. He threw a punch forward and executed various moves. Prince Zhenli and the others were startled. They quickly reacted and executed their ancient martial arts. Boom! Boom! Following a series of explosions, young Master Zhenli and the others were forced to back away. Qin Nan had managed to gain the upper hand in a single exchange of blows. Great Evolution Sacred Mountain. Qin Nan made his move again. He summoned an illusionary mountain with the violent energy in his body. It floated in the air. Compared to before, the mountain was even more majestic and solid. It seemed like it was about to break through some kind of shackles and transform into its true form. This time, Qin Nan's target was not only Prince Zhenli and the others, but also the short-haired young man and the others. Do you think you can suppress all of us just because you ate a rank 6 immortal elixir? The short-haired young man yelled furiously. The chain in his hand turned into an ancient godly dragon that roared. He was extremely angry. He could have resolved the crisis if Luning Shuang took out the candle dragon fruit. He did not expect Qin Nan to do something so crazy for Luning Shuang. Qin Nan glanced at Luning Shuang and shouted, "What are you waiting for? I'll hold them off first. You should leave quickly. I'll find you later." Luning Shuang bit her lip and said, "I'm not leaving. If you want to leave, we'll leave together." Chapter 25-26. They had never expected that Qin Nan would take out a second rank 6 celestial elixir. The value of a rank 6 celestial elixir was extremely shocking. Even for the short-haired youth, with his background in the sect and his own talent, the sect had only promised him one rank 6 celestial elixir when he was about to break through to that level. Only then would he be given one rank 6 celestial elixir. As for the 2 rank 6 celestial elixirs, he did not even think about it. Very good. The short-haired youth was so angry that he laughed and said, "I never thought that you would take out 2 rank 6 celestial elixirs and give up your own future for a woman. However, do you think this is meaningful? This rank 6 celestial elixir is only a matter of time. I just want you to buy some time. He still did not back down, even though Qin Nan's aura had reached a terrifying level. It had already surpassed that of a celestial being of the ultimate path realm. However, as long as they could hold on for a while, Qin Nan would definitely weaken. You are right. Qin Nan gritted his teeth, took out 3 elixirs, and swallowed them at the same time. Boom, 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 boom. The void around him shattered. He was like a demon that had been sleeping for many years that had completely awakened. The aura that erupted from him shot straight into the clouds. Even the leaves of the torched dragon tree, which had been standing alone in the distance without any reaction, were suffused with halos and emitted ethereal dragon roars. The short-haired youth, young Master Zhenli, and the rest of the geniuses were all stunned and could not believe their eyes. Had he swallowed 3 more rank 6 celestial elixirs? Let's go! The short-haired youth, young Master Zhenli, and the rest of the geniuses felt a chill run down their spines, causing them to wake up abruptly. Qin Nan's actions were like a thunderbolt that crushed all their courage. They all turned into rays of light and rushed into the distance. This guy was a lunatic. How could they continue to fight with a lunatic? You want to leave? Not so fast. Qin Nan felt as if his soul was about to explode. He urgently needed to vent the terrifying power that was rampaging within his body. Qin Nan immediately gave chase and unleashed tens of thousands of crescent-shaped saber qi. His aura was monstrous, as if he was a supreme godly king, capable of sweeping through the heavens. Lu Ningxuang stared blankly at the scene. Now, in her mind, there was only the scene of Qin Nan swallowing the pill. He swallowed a total of 5 rank 6 immortal pills, disregarding everything. For her, Qin Nan pursued for 300 breaths of time. After severely injuring 10 geniuses, the rampaging energy in his body finally stopped, allowing him to regain control of his body. If I had known this would happen, I would have swallowed 3 to 5 6 revolution immortal pills right from the start. Then, none of them would have been able to escape. Qin Nan was a little annoyed. As for now, there was no need to give chase. Because even if he caught up to one and killed it, if the other geniuses found out that the energy in his body had decreased, then they would definitely kill him again. At that time, he wouldn't swallow the 6 revolutions immortal pill again, right? That would be too wasteful. After all, during the process, Qin Nan did not have the time to comprehend the power of the pills. In particular, after swallowing 5 rank 6 immortal pills, Qin Nan realized the shocking power of the pills. Qin Nan placed more importance on them. He could easily understand the changes in the power of the pills and comprehend the pill recipes and pill art. He would be able to refine the pills himself when he returned to his past life. By then, he would be able to help the Empress, the Princess, Bailan, and the others improve rapidly. Qin Nan turned around and left after having the thought. Lu Ningxuang was still waiting for him. When she saw him flying back from the distance, she asked gently, "How are you feeling?" Qin Nan felt a little strange, but he did not think too much about it. He shook his head and said, "I'm fine. By the way, where do you plan to go next?" Before he could finish, Lu Ningxuang suddenly said angrily, "Fine? How can you be fine? That's a rank 6 immortal pill. If you eat one, you won't be able to break through for the rest of your life. This time, you ate 6 at once. The consequences are even more serious. It's just a candle. It's just a dragon fruit. Why do you have to go so far?" Qin Nan was stunned for a moment. Then, he smiled and said, "I have a grudge against Sir Zhenli and the others. Even if they get the candle dragon fruit, they won't let me go. Moreover, I don't want them to get the candle dragon fruit. Also, you don't know that I'm fine. Eating those pills won't affect me." Lu Ningxuang's heart trembled. Won't affect him? How could that be? Even if it didn't cause Qin Nan to be unable to break through, it would definitely leave serious repercussions for Qin Nan. He would need to pay a huge price to resolve them. She suddenly understood that Qin Nan said that on purpose. He did not want her to worry or feel guilty. We only met once, but he went so far. He's really… Lu Ningxuang's dusty heart was suddenly in a mess. What's wrong? Are you okay? Qin Nan saw the change in her expression and couldn't help but ask. He didn't know that Lu Ningxuang would think so much about him. I'm fine. Lu Ningxuang reacted and took a deep breath. Her expression returned to normal. She took out the candle dragon fruit and said, "Take it. It should be yours." Qin Nan shook his head and said, "No need. This fruit doesn't mean anything to me." Lu Ningxuang gave him the space-time cannon. He was indebted to her, so he naturally had to help her. However, Lu Ningxuang didn't think that way. This was the candle dragon fruit. How could it not help him? He didn't want it, but he did it for her. Then I won't give it to you," Lu Ningxuang stuttered and put it back into the storage ring. "Miss Lu, where do you plan to go later?" Qin Nan asked again. "I don't have a target for now. Why don't I go with you?" Lu Ningxuang thought for a moment and said, "Oh, that works too." Qin Nan nodded and said, "I obtained a map earlier. Perhaps it points to a good place. Let's head east now." Qin Nan turned around and flew forward. He had a good impression of Lu Ningxuang, so it shouldn't be a problem to bring her along. Chapter 25-27. Around 5 hours later, Qin Nan and Lu Ningxuang entered a huge mountain. They soon saw an altar over 100 zhang tall built with the bones of some kind of beast. The runes engraved on it were slightly blurred, giving it a strange feeling. It felt cold. Lu Ningxuang observed the altar for a moment and said, "This is a teleportation altar refined with an ancient method. It's most likely used to leave the Torch Dragon mystical ground and head to the next place." Qin Nan already knew that, but he did not say it out loud. He was impressed by Lu Ningxuang's cautiousness. The two soon entered the altar and inserted their power. A gentle glow immediately encapsulated them, and they vanished into thin air. About 100 breaths later, the two of them trembled and landed on an unfamiliar land. At the same time, a bone-piercing chill suddenly rose in their hearts. The two executed their arts of Tao seeking simultaneously and waited for the right moment. They scanned their surroundings. They could only see a thick black mist in all directions. It was different from the black mist that Qin Nan had encountered before. It was like an abyss that could devour their vision and light. It was extremely dark. However, they did not fall into the eerie world of the black mist. Under their feet was a bloody path around 10 zhang wide, extending into the distance. They had no idea where it led to. Vaguely, the two of them seemed to smell a strong stench of blood, as if this road was dyed with endless blood. "Isn't this the great evolution sex path of the gods?" Lu Ningxuang's expression shifted slightly as she said, "The path of the gods is one of the infamous danger zones of the great evolution sect. It's extremely dangerous. It's almost impossible to survive once you enter it. Normally, only disciples who had committed grave mistakes in the sect would be sent here. If you can make it out alive, you'll be able to write off all the mistakes you've made." Qin Nan was startled. It was a danger zone? When Underworld Daozi gave him the map, he did mention that he would arrive at another mystical ground after taking the altar from the Torch Dragon mystical ground. However, there was no danger in the mystical ground. As long as he continued forward, he would arrive at the Great Evolution Sect. The core of the Heavenly Sect, the Hall of Succession. Is there something wrong with the altar? Or is there no longer any danger in the God-burying Tao? Two thoughts appeared in Qin Nan's mind. He personally felt that the possibility of the latter was higher. With Lu Ningxuang's eyesight, if there were any changes to the altar or if it was tampered with, she would definitely be able to detect it. "Miss Lu, let's use the ancient characters to protect ourselves." Qin Nan said as he unleashed the word immortal and the other ancient characters, which danced around his body. You. Lu Ningxuang's face was filled with shock when she saw the word celestial. You actually comprehended the word celestial ? Upon seeing this, Qin Nan immediately asked, Miss Lu, what's so special about this Xian character? Lu Ningxuang came back to her senses, and a complicated look appeared in her beautiful eyes. She said, I really didn't expect your martial arts talent to be this strong. She paused for a moment before continuing. According to ancient legends, there are only two ways to obtain the true inheritance of the Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect. The first is to obtain a Grand Evolution sacred badge and enter this place with it. However, since ancient times, countless cultivators have entered this place. I have never dreamed of obtaining the sacred token of Dian. Why is that? A rare trace of a smile appeared on Lu Ningxuang's usually calm face. She seemed to be mocking him as she said, It's very simple. The Great Evolution sacred badges left behind by the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect were almost all prepared for their descendant. For example, the descendants of the sect master. The descendants of an immortal emperor. Only those with such a bloodline could find the sacred token of Dian. She then added, Therefore, the sacred token of Dian in the Nine-Firmament Immortal Emperor's tomb was originally prepared for the descendants of the immortal emperor. You're really lucky to be able to obtain it. Qin Nan could not help but smile after hearing this. Their luck was indeed good back then. The first method can be considered as being prepared for the rich and powerful. From a human point of view, it's understandable. However, such a move could easily hinder the development of a sect. A true sect should rely on the strong, not on the strong. The influence of the ancestors. Lu Ningxuang commented, before continuing, however, the last sect master of the Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect was not foolish. Originally, many elders of the Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect suggested that only through the sacred token of Dian could one obtain the true inheritance of the Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect. However, the sect master of the Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect overruled the objections and arranged for the 10 great immortal emperors to speak. The 10 great immortal emperors spoke at the same time as a kind of test. The last 10 immortal emperors spoke at the same time, with a total of more than 3,000 words. Whoever was able to grasp a character with a higher ranking would mean that this person was extraordinarily talented. Generally speaking, as long as one grasped the top 30 ancient words, one would have a certain chance of obtaining the true inheritance of the Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect. Within these 30 ancient words, the higher the ranking, the greater the chance of obtaining it. Qin Nan was surprised. He did not expect there to be such a mystery. In the past million years, no one has comprehended the immortal character? Qin Nan asked curiously. In the past million years, the Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect had a total of over 100 successors, Lu Ningxuang said faintly. Naturally, some of them comprehended it. However, there was only one person. This person should still be alive. His name is Immortal Emperor Wu Yang. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He had already become an immortal emperor? If that's the case, doesn't that mean I can obtain the true inheritance of the Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect, and even become an immortal emperor? Qin Nan touched his nose. Don't think too much. Now that 3 sacred tokens of Dian have appeared, and the 2 descendants of the immortal emperors have come prepared, you and your friend only have less than a 10% chance. Lu Ningxuang poured cold water on him. As for becoming an immortal emperor? Wait a moment. See for yourself in 100,000 years. Qin Nan was speechless. Could he not even think about it? Then, the two of them carefully moved forward. After 2 hours, Qin Nan found that there was no danger, which confirmed his guess. Thus, he put aside part of his attention and turned to chat with Lu Ningxuang. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.